Greetings. Welcome to the Sunday Show After Dark. It's the Sunday Show, only this time it's After Dark. I'm your host, Forrest Valkai, and I am joined today by Darante LaMar. How are you doing today, man?
I'm doing pretty good, man. Excited to be on here with you tonight. I think this is our first time doing something together outside of charity, so this is really awesome for me.
When I saw we were paired together, I got like actually giddy. I'm just beyond stoked to work with you. I've been like loving everything that I've been seeing you in for a long time.
Oh man,
I will very quickly let you and everyone else know that I just got back from Denver, Colorado. I was at the Secular Hub of Denver giving a talk for their Darwin Day celebration. That was yesterday. I flew back to Oklahoma first thing in the morning, arrived here at the very beginning of the afternoon, and my bags apparently stayed in Denver. And they'll be here soon. And then I'll be able to I'm a little scruffier and more tired and kind of like because I've been chasing that around all day. And I'm running on very little airplane sleep. I'm also terrified of airplanes, by the way. And so just the anxiety sleep on the airplane and a little bit of like Hunan style triple delight and an order of French fries. That's what's going through my body. And I've got the weirdest headache and I'm excited to do a show and return to some normalcy for a second. This is comfortable for me.
Oh man, I get it. Oh, I get it. Oy.
We've got a great show for everybody today. Really quickly before we get started, I got to let you know about all the other shows that we're doing, because if I don't do it right now, I will forget. Today is the best show, which is me and Darante. Tomorrow is also the best show with me and Austin, and then the shows are just kind of whatever from there. We've got we got Chewed Gum with Alyssa and Eve. We've got the Hang Up with Matt and Phil, and we've got TACIS with Arden and Josie. Those all honestly sound fantastic. So tune into all of those if you're into those sorts of things. And if you're not, I'm not a cop. I'm not going to be mad at you, but you should check them out because they're really, really good. We've also got lines open right now for people that want to call in and tell us about what they believe and why. We've got lines open right now for theists, for people who believe in ghosts or demons or spirits, or if you believe in big feets and Loch Ness monsters, or if you are a science denier of any kind, a flat earther, an anti-vaxxer, a transphobe, a creationist, we'd love to talk to you. You've got one biologist and one former preacher here who are ready to just be weird at you
yes.
in regards to everything you have to say. So call in. The numbers on the bottom screen there, 720-619-2288, or use the link in the description. Call in over them internets. Just make sure that you tap your phone and wake it up. Otherwise, we won't be able to hear you. Those are all things that you can do to tell us about your beliefs. Darante, do you have anything for us before we get started?
Oh man, well, honestly, my neurospicy has been tripping out ever since I heard you say big feet, and so I've just been thinking, hey, I believe in big feet too. I'm a believer in big feet. You know what they say about people with big feet, don't you? Now let me stop.
Big shoes.
Right. Oh man. No, I'm just excited to be here, man, and I'm definitely excited to hear some calls tonight. I'm interested to see if someone's going to say something tonight that's going to be compelling or convincing. That would be mind blowing for me.
That'd be the big one. Is if we can get something that we haven't heard before, that'd be phenomenal. Or if we can just get someone who is genuinely passionate about what they believe, even if it's if it's old news, if it's somebody who just genuinely really wants to dig into their ideas, that would make me very happy.
Yes.
So again, that number on the bottom of the screen, we've got people calling in already, but we've still got a couple of lines open. That number on the bottom of the screen for theists, especially, please. If you're an atheist, just think twice about calling, because you'll take the call, but you'll be waiting for a very long time. So, but theists especially, we would love to hear from you. That number on the bottom of the screen, 720-619-2288. Tell us why your God is real, and tell us why we should think so too. With that, we're actually going to start a little bit different today. We've got the very first person who called in here is Stella, who is an agnostic druid. So it even says in the call screen, not really a theist, but would like to argue about religious rituals that are helpful for dealing with grief and other strong emotions. That's actually kind of interesting from an anthropological perspective. And I wanted to talk about it a little bit. And then immediately after that, we're going to jump into a pure theist call. So let's start with Stella. You're on the line with Forrest and Darante. How are you doing today?
Not bad. How are you?
Never had a bad day.
I love that.
Jealous, but it's good.
So, do you have a particular thing? Because I could ramble on about ritual and about what they're for and what they do and how they look the same and all these sorts of things. But I'm interested in your take. Like, what specifically are you interested in approaching here?
Well, so there's a lot of different religious rituals on a lot of different religions, and some of them can be helpful. But then I don't know if using these rituals to process emotions helps solidify that religions are good, but they also can be helpful. So I'm just kind of arguing that they can be helpful, but I don't know the extent of how helpful that can be.
Yeah. So I've already got some notes. Darante, do you want to start or do you want me to start?
Okay. I'll start because I feel like you're gonna have more than me on this one.
Okay.
So I'll start just to hit it just very quickly, and that is I do 100% agree. Ritual is a very human experience. It's a very human practice. It's something that we've always used, and something that we're not separated from today. So even when we go to sports, today is the Super Bowl thing, people will be participating in ritual today. So I guess for me, the biggest thing is I don't see ritual and religion as necessarily one and the same. I know that religions use rituals, but in the same way that court systems use ritual, in the same way that politics use rituals, art use ritual. And so, no, I'd 100% agree that rituals are healthy and are absolutely helpful for humanity. My concern would be when we attach the misinformation of religious falsehood to those rituals, which would then sets people expectations for things that are not necessarily realistic. And I often remind people that disappointment is the child of false expectations. That's one of the main reasons I'm against falsehood. But other than that, no, I 100% agree that ritual is healthy, and that isn't something that we should see as automatically religious or superstitious. I'm very interested in what Forrest has to say on this, though.
Yeah, so I forgot that it was the Super Bowl, even though we literally just before we started the show remembered that it was, and then talked about how we never pay attention to it, and I had already within 5 minutes had forgotten that was happening again. So yeah, there's a few things here that I think are important. And the first thing is I'm going to say exactly what Darante just said. Ritual absolutely has meaning, has utility, in both an individual and societal level. But tying religion into ritual is where you get a lot of problems, and it's not a necessary hang up. And so some great examples of secular versions of ritual is if you look at Law and Order, how the way that our legal system works, especially in court, right? The way that you have this ritual of everyone stands up as the judge comes in and sits down, and then you have this gavel that they bang that doesn't really do anything. It's just very symbolic. And these kind of very, very symbolic things that carry weight with us because they're a part of our doxa. And I'll explain what I mean by that in a second. In terms of a coming of age and things like this, every coming of age ceremony or social a change in social hierarchy ceremony, they look more or less the same. You have someone who is removed from society, they change their identity, and then they are reintegrated with this new identity. You get a degree. You are now removed from everybody in this weird outfit with this stupid hat, and you have to walk across a thing and move a tassel, and then you are reintroduced as Doctor whatever, and this is your new identity. Same thing with a lot of coming of age ceremonies. You do the dance with the bullet ants in your gloves, or you smash a piñata, or you blow candles out of a cake, or whatever. A bar mitzvah, all of these things have this same kind of structure of being, you are isolated in a way, you have your identity modified, and then you are reintegrated into your group. And that's a very useful ritual pattern that is pretty ubiquitous across a lot of cultures for a lot of different reasons. And that's useful because it gives you that kind of closure of a chapter, and it tells you who you are now, and it's just meaningful for people. You mentioned grief. A lot of cultures will ceremonially wash a dead body. When a relative dies, they will wash their body, they'll braid their hair, they'll do their makeup, they'll clip their fingernails, they'll do all these things, which sometimes has a religious connotation, but doesn't necessarily. And that can be done completely secularly, and it's as healing as it would be otherwise, because it gives people, again, that closure. It gives them a little bit more intimacy with this person's body before they're gone. There's some cultures where they'll dig up the body every year and have dinner with it. There's cultures where they'll, I remember this one, I can't remember off the top of my head, but I remember in arc theory class, we talked about this one culture where they would exhume the body after a certain amount of time and take just the skull and encrust it with stuff, and they'd stick it in a little alcove in the wall. And that's where grandma lives now. You know what I mean? And all these things, there's an interesting discussion to have about their comprehension and concept of what life and death mean, and how they have different dualisms than we do. But more importantly, it's just highlighting this secular ritual of how you treat death, how you treat growth, how you treat development, how you treat change, how you treat all of these things in a way that gives you kind of a crystallized understanding of it beyond what you would expect in a wilderness situation where someone just dies and rots on the ground and you move around, or you just are a different person today because you lost a leg and who cares, and whatever else it may be. All of that, this is the last thing I'll say because I've been rambling for a fucking minute. All of that, I mentioned the word doxa a minute ago. DOXA. Yes. So somebody's habits becomes the habitus of them and their surrounding civilization, their surrounding community. The habitus is just the things, the motions that people do, the way that we do stuff as Americans, our particular creature comforts, the way we brush our teeth in the morning is all kind of the same and a little bit different than it would be for these other people over here. And then that gets you into what's known as doxa, which is sort of the unspoken but very deliberate rules of society. You go to see a concert, right? Where are you going to sit at that concert? Do you sit in the front row? Do you sit in the back row? Do you sit off to the sides? Do you sit in the balcony? You can think about this for a minute. Good chance you're not going to think, I'll sit on stage, because that's outside of the doctrine. That's a totally reasonable thing to think, but that's outside of the rules, right? It's a reason why you don't eat a Kit Kat bar without breaking it apart first, because that's out of the doxa, right? And so that, I think, is where ritual really plays a big part, is it maintains this doxa, it maintains this cultural group collective behavior that makes us all feel connected and gives us that sense of community. But it doesn't necessarily have to be roped into, as Darante was talking about, this religious lie and this grift of okay, great, now pass the offering plate too, and also you go to hell. That's where it gets sticky. Stella, I've been talking for a really long time. Does all of this make sense to you?
Yeah, it's a really good stuff. I'll have to remember doxa. That is a great word. You had a lot of things about these these secular rituals and stuff like that, but there are a lot of rituals that have their basis in religions. A lot of funerals have their basis the families have been doing it this way in the specific church for generations, and so it's this ritual that's tied in with this religion thing, but there's also this. It could be seen as could be seen as secular or religious as well. So I don't know if there's is there any benefit to continue on that ritual that still has very, very deep ties with this sort of religious overtones, and the preacher gets up and talks about all of their stuff, and even they could be a really nice preacher, but it's still very much Bible stuff thrown in there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's an incredibly fair point. One of the things that I like to highlight to people from a sociological perspective is that when we talk about the difference between what is sacred and secular today, that is an anachronistic conversation. So you can't necessarily take that conversation and impose it on ancient religion, because in the ancient religious mind, there was no difference between sacred and secular. These two things were the same things. This is why I often remind people that there was a time where it was almost, I want to say, reasonable for humans to wonder about divine things, supernatural things, and all of these things. Because during a major part of human history, we didn't see that thing as this is something that happens outside of nature and we're inside of nature. For a major part of for our anthropological relationship with the world around us, it has been secular and sacred has been the same thing. So the reason I say that is because, yes, while there are many things that seem to have a root in religion, I think the way you worded it just really hit it at what it really is, and that is tradition. They're not doing this because it is religious. They're doing this because this is what we have done. And I think that's something that the secular community could do very well to investigate, interrogate, and even appreciate at times, because that is one of the things that I've even called out about many churches that still call themselves Christian, that many of them are only Christian in name only. For the most part, what they are doing, what they are preserving is a sense of ancestor worship. This is what our ancestors did. This is what those who did who before them. And it's that sense of preserving that. And I think if we spend time investigating that, we'll see that most people's attachments to religion are not truly religious, but are actually humanistic. Like one of the hardest struggles that people have from separating religion from ritual is not because they think God is going to be disappointed. It's typically because I'm afraid, great Graham is going to be disappointed because she's the one that taught me these things. And I do try to remind people that at the root of all religion, this is just from my perspective as a person who doesn't believe that there is a God, but at the root of all religion is absolute human intention and human imagination. And so I think we'll see that all the way down. What are your thoughts, Forrest?
Yeah, you said a lot of really important stuff there. Oh no, you're telling me. We're gonna go for several hours between the two of us. Yeah, so you said a lot of really important stuff here that I think is like key to expound upon. Number one is that like intro to anthropology, like the very first lesson you will learn is that you need to address the dualisms in your cultural heuristics and get rid of them if you're going to understand any other culture. And what we mean by dualisms, it is those dividing lines between what Darante was just saying, culture versus nature is a big one. Like, where does nature start and our culture begin? Because I guarantee it's going to look very different for different cultures, especially if you're looking at indigenous cultures versus cultures like ours.
Yes.
And so also life versus death and good versus evil and all these other things, like even the distinction between, as a biologist, I can tell you that the distinction between species fucking sucks. But as an anthropologist, I can tell you it's even worse. Like you get this really fuzzy line when you have people that are really connected to different like sigils and signs and symbology and animals and plants and all these things that like become a part of their cultural identity. And that's the biggest thing, that what you were just talking about was, this maintenance of tradition as a way of like, you don't want to disappoint your family, but much more than you don't want to disappoint God. That maintenance of tradition becomes a part of identity. And that's something I think is really important, not to change the subject too far, but we like to like poke fun at trans people and say like, oh, well, this whole self-identification thing. Self-identification is a major part of social identity as a whole. And it's not in any way unique to trans identities. It's like the whole fucking thing. And like, that's so big when you look at like ritual and tradition and like even religious practice that may not be considered religious practice. The Jewish tradition of ceremonially washing your hands before a meal. Microbiology exists beyond religion, y'all. It's a good thing to do. As well as you look at like ancient rules of like, don't eat shellfish. Well, why? It's because shellfish spoil really easy, and it's very easy to get some that are already gross without even knowing it. And there's a big allergy risk. You die a lot faster and a lot more often if you eat it. So it becomes a sacred thing to not eat it. It becomes taboo to eat it. You know what I mean? And so like you have these things that become like ancestral wisdom that then become divine wisdom that just kind of last for on and on. And then you get to a certain point that you don't even know why you're doing it anymore. You may have heard there's this old story, this really dumb like anthropology story of like this woman is preparing Christmas dinner, and she puts a ham in a pan. She cuts the end off the ham, and her daughter comes in and says,
Yes.
"Why'd you cut the end off the ham like that?" You know what I'm talking about? Yeah. And she's like, "Why'd you cut the end off the ham?"
Preacher story.
That's what my mom did. And so they call the mom, and they're like, "Well, why you cut the end off the ham?" She says, "That's what my mom did." So they call the grandma, like, "Why'd you cut off the end off the ham?" She's like, "Because the pan didn't fit in the fucking pan. I had to cut the end off of it."
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
So it's just this thing that gets passed down, and that's how rituals become religions. And so, like, yeah, especially when you have things that are tied into identity, tied into grief, tied into coming of age, comes into change, death, nature, nurture, all these other things. You get this happening long enough and with a big enough community and enough people who don't want to fucking explain it, and pretty soon you have a religion. And so, like, I think you've got a really, really deep thing to think about here. And I would encourage you, like, to dig into it further. I think you'll learn a lot of really cool stuff about your own culture that you may not have realized was this kind of way. I've got this one curl that I keep seeing on my monitor over here that's just bouncing like crazy. I'm going to kill myself about it. But, like, I encourage you to check that out. I think you'll learn a lot. I think you'll have a lot of fun with it, Stella. If these are the kind of questions you're asking, I think you'll be into it if you check it out more.
Yes.
Well, I love anthropology. It's really fun. I just don't have enough time for anything.
Also, I'm sorry if I can say one more very quick thing. Also, you mentioned religion. It's important to point out that because of all of this, and because of what Darante especially was talking about, how like just like there isn't always this distinction between the mundane and the divine, and sometimes it's just the spiritualistic way of living, and it's not even considered a supernatural thing in this culture. That's one of the major reasons why religion is so impossible to actually define as a concept. We have a colloquial way of using it that makes sense, but like my intro anthropology textbook, which is around here somewhere, it describes religion as just like belief in things that are like imperceptible to the five senses. And that would mean that like microbiology and like any kind of medicine is a religion, and like it doesn't make any sense.
Physics is now religion.
Yes, exactly. But that's the best we can do. So that's just something you should also think about if you're talking about religion in any way, especially an anthropological way. That's something to consider as you're going along with it.
Yeah, that makes sense because, like I said, so this call screen, I'm like an agnostic druid, which is just like a word stuff that I put together for like how I view spirituality, I guess, and how I go through and think about like emotions and community and stuff like that, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I get you. Well, I hope this was enlightening in some way, if not just a lot of just us talking. But I hope it helped in something. I hope it gave you. Hope you really get something out of this.
I got a lot of notes, so I will have to go read through a lot of stuff. Thank you.
Righteous, and feel free to call back anytime if you have any further questions. We'll talk to you soon, Stella.
All right, thank you.
Bye-bye. Fun way to start the show.
No, I enjoyed that.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's very rare that we get to like, especially if we're calling in someone who is not specifically a theist. It's very rare that we get to like really dig into some meat of something really fun.
Yes,
we've got a ton of lines open. We have one theist and one atheist currently waiting on the line. We're gonna take the theist first, but like, I guess it's because it's Super Bowl Sunday. We may have a short show today. It is what it is. But I gotta tell you, the amount of people that live on my Instagram and TikTok comment sections, and especially, oh my God, YouTube especially, to tell me how much they can disprove evolution, I'd love one of them to call in. It'd be great.
I'm interested.
Let's talk to this one. I'm pretty sure is a repeat caller, but like I don't remember how it goes usually. we'll see what the chat tells us as we take the call, because they're never quiet. We've got Yoshi, who is a theist that wants to defend God's obsession with circumcision. Okay.
That's a weird thing to defend.
Dramatic pivot. We're taking it. It was real fun, and now it's going to be this. Yoshi, you're on the line with Forrest and Darante. How are you doing today?
Hey guys, what's up?
I'm excited to hear this, whatever this is about to be.
Okay, so the prompts actually came from the other show. I'm on the line right now, right? Oh, okay. This prompt came from the last show, the show that just went live on the Atheist Experience. They had that in the chat. It said call in to defend, and I was like, well, that seems fun. Like I want to give it a shot. I'd like to try. so it'll kind of go along
just to be
with.
Clear. I just want to understand.
Yeah,
Do you have a strong position yourself on why circumcision is good, or do you just defending what your God thinks, or like what's going on?
No, I definitely wouldn't say it's a strong case that God did it. Let me just explain where I'm going to go with this. Okay, so
yikes!
Before you do, can you please tell us you're calling in as a Christian? I'm guessing.
Yes, I would say I'm a Christian.
Okay.
Okay. So. Okay. Here we go. So. It's kind of like you guys were talking about earlier. The thing with the shellfish, right? People had figured out, like, you eat this, you get sick. Let's not eat this, right? And maybe
if you eat foreskins, you get sick as well. That's absolutely right.
You don't want to suck on the foreskins. Don't do that.
Is that what they were doing with them? Is that why God wanted them? I don't know. Okay. So it reduces the risk of urinary tract infection. It lowers the chances of developing certain sexually transmitted infections. And it maybe they just realize, hey, this isn't really all that useful to us. It seems to kind of be in the way. There's been some people who have tried to make the case that there's less sexual stimulation without the foreskin, but they've done studies now, I think, that show that that's not the case, really, or at least not significant enough of a difference to really say that like it would be a bit of a stretch. So I would say that, the best defense possible for God's obsession with foreskins is maybe there were a lot of, people maybe, can you die from a urinary tract infection?
Yes,
I know you can die from
so
transmitted diseases. So.
You'd be shocked about how many things you can die from. So here's the thing: is that there is. I actually don't know off the top of my head what the modern evidence is pointing to in terms of like whether or not this actually lowers the rates of STI transmission. Last I heard, there was marginal evidence at best, but I'm not a doctor, right? So I'm not going to say for sure that it's this or that. What I am going to say is that genital mutilation isn't fun or cool, and that these are things that even if we're saying this is a preventative measure, should not be tolerated as something that is done against someone's will, against their bodily autonomy, usually without their even knowledge of what's going on, because it's usually done when they're an infant. This is extremely sensitive tissue that is being brutalized. Usually, this is not done. The idea this is a modern medical invention. It fucking wasn't. For the longest time, this was just done with a sharp stone and sucking it off. That's why you have cases of like herpes being transmitted to lots of infants, because this is being sucked off in the traditional way. We also, and that can cause death, especially in infants. Very, what you might consider a minor infection or a minor STI in adults is extremely serious in infants. It is, even if we can say that there is strong positive evidence, even if I was 100% sold, which again, I don't have evidence in either way. I'm not saying anything like this, but like, even if I knew for sure, I had like a bazillion case studies proving for sure that circumcision was the way to go to keep people free of STIs, it's still not appropriate to do that to babies without their consent first. For the same reason that I can say condoms are, absolutely a great way to reduce STI infection. You don't need to be stapling a condom onto a baby just in case for when it grows up, or whatever the hell the analogy would be here. It's just a silly ass, disgusting thing to do. And for you to say that this is like a tradition that just be kind of a thing, that sounds about as reasonable as you would expect with, Iron Age illiterate goat herders doing something fucking gross because they think it's good. Will ignore the fact that actually it is traditionally mainly done, at least here in the United States, to reduce the risk of masturbation. That's what it's actually for, is to reduce stimulation and reduce sensitivity. And that's why Kellogg, by the way, that very same Kellogg, like Kellogg's cornflakes. Yeah. Kellogg made cornflakes because he believed that eating bland foods would make it less likely for young boys to masturbate. He also is a strong proponent of circumcision and making it like a regular thing. It's part of the reason why we just ask new parents, do you want to cut the tip of your baby's penis off? As if that's a fucking normal thing to do. Anyway, what I was saying is, even if we pretend like this is purely just from a health perspective and that makes any kind of sense, that does in fact track with a bunch of people in a cult mutilating children because they believe it's a good thing to do. It does not track with the almighty, all-powerful, all-knowing creator of the universe passing down divine instructions. Yoshi, if your God is real, he's a fucking evil monster, and this is yet another reason why. That's everything I have to say about it off the top of my head.
I did want to add to that because, and I mean, you just hit that excellently, Forrest, but like, Yoshi, what you described was not a defense for why God would do this. What you described as a defense of why people would come to the conclusion to do this, which I actually appreciate. I wish more people would do that because that removes the genie from the bottle. We don't have to worry about the man hiding behind the curtain anymore. We realize that these are absolute humans wrestling with real things. Now, the only thing that I did want to call out, along with what Forrest was calling out, was the lower risk of STIs. When we make such claims as that, there's so much that we're overlooking from a variable perspective, right? So if we say yes, circumcisions may lead to lower transmission of STIs, that statement can only be accurate if we're talking about people who are not properly practicing self-care. And so that seems to be a weird variable to leave out when it's easy for us all to practice self-care. So like that, the idea of circumcision being a lower risk of STI is really not sustainable in the face of actual sociological evidence. And sociological evidence, if people are taking care of themselves, which we should be doing, whether it's our genitals or any other areas, genitals, hands, all the same, we should be washing them. As long as we're doing those things, then this argument itself, it literally doesn't hold up, But no, I do appreciate you presenting this, Yoshi, because it's an interesting conversation. God likes to chop people's dicks off for whatever reason. Got to do a dick check to make sure you're a part of the covenant.
I have a whole thing about exactly that, but I want to hear Yoshi's response first.
Dark Matter 2525. I'm sorry if he's an atheist plug at least. But Dark Matter 2525 has a hilarious cartoon about circumcision, probably several of them, and it's pretty funny. I can see the argument. You guys definitely win that one, but that wasn't really my main reason for calling. I just thought it would help me get through the screening, and y'all would find me interesting enough to take the call. But I appreciate, and y'all made great points. I think it's kind of like the shellfish thing. Like you said, it may have started with some sort of reason. I think everything we do as humans should have reason behind it. Like you're not just doing it because tradition and have no idea what you're doing it for. And so, like I said, I would try.
It probably did start as a traditional thing. However, it probably, I would be very skeptical of the idea that it was noticed to have a reduction of STIs. That I would be very skeptical of that. I think it had a lot more to do with, there's a lot of penile fixation, a lot of genital fixation in general, and a lot of ritualistic cuttings and things around the world. And so, like, I think it probably had more to do with masturbation or just something else. And it just kind of got out of hand. gotta keep your dick in hand. I don't know.
You said that I was you said that I was a repeat caller, and I've only called one other time to the line, and it was literally on Thursday when they have the transatlantic show, and I talked to them, the host, about, and this actually came up, because we were talking about procedures and stuff like that. So circumcision came up, and I brought it up and said, I didn't appreciate that I didn't have that choice, and I think that was a little bit drastic. Because we were talking about how these things are like the word drastic to describe transitioning, a person transitioning through surgery or whatever. And I admitted that me using the word drastic was maybe unwarranted because it's a relative thing and it's subjective to that person, the one that's making
also,
that decision. It doesn't matter what other people think when it's your body, your choice.
Right. And that is something that, like, I can say for sure is actually backed by evidence-based best practices and is not in any way like a first resort. You know what I'm saying? So, like, that is definitely, I would actually absolutely agree, calling that drastic would be inappropriate. But I appreciate you clarifying that you changed your mind on that. That's really good.
That's beautiful.
And yeah, no, it is, and it's also important to remember that, like, this whole time we've really only been talking about circumcision of anatomical males. When it comes to anatomical females, like, then it is actually just about control, and it is just about harm, and it is just about mutilation in order to pervert and change, the practice of sex, because of a very patriarchal, misogynistic culture. And so, like, that's a very different thing.
Yeah,
and so you have to ask,
that
like,
mostly does that.
But it's the same God, and so, like, you have to ask, like, if this is this same God here, what the fuck is this God doing? What's going on?
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's a bad time.
I understand where you guys are coming from, like the Zoroastrian roots of the three main religions, Judaism, or not. I don't want to say main. I don't know if that's right, but at least the.
It's a good catch.
Like what would you say? The Near Eastern origin religions: Christianity, Islam, and Judaism.
Sure.
Yeah, I get that. Like the God that I'm talking about and the Christ that I'm talking about, I want to clarify, is very different than a fundamentalist take on it. I began my
see, that's where you should have started this conversation at, Yoshi.
I'm interested.
Yeah, but I wanted to start it with the circumcision. That's what I wanted to talk about.
12 minutes of three people agreeing that cutting baby dicks is a bad deal. I like, if we're going to tie it back in, I think something that Darante said earlier on about how we need to be practicing self-care and everything, that's where we can tie it in, is that Jesus said, don't criticize the speck in someone's eye until you address the plank in your own. Don't cut somebody's dick until you've washed your own. That's what it's all about. That's the religion that we should be practicing.
Nice.
I like that.
I'm sorry. I want to get to good meat of the content, but also I wanted to hit one other thing before I forget about it. Forrest, how is it possible you've never had a bad day, man? You must be the most privileged person alive. I mean, I'm not hating. I'm glad for you. But dang, dude.
I mean, did you see the Superman
Every time you say that, it kind of pisses me off a little bit.
Curl, man.
Oh, that's what it is.
No,
dude, he's got superpowers because of that hair.
It's just perspective. It's all about perspective. I'm a cosmic nihilist and I love ancient stoicism. And so, like, I've had days where I can't get off the bathroom floor because I'm just crying in the shower and I just am beaten down and miserable and nothing's going right. But at least I lived through it, and it impacted my way to be a more compassionate, more empathetic person to other people. The things that hurt us the most are usually the things that we can use to help people the most. And so, that, as someone who just wants to help people in my life, I'm not going to say I'm grateful, because I'm not, but holy crap, I can make a good thing out of a bad thing. It's what I'm very good at. It's what I had a shitty upbringing, and that's what it taught me to do. And so, like, it's just perspective. But that's a whole other talk for a whole other time. Tell me why you believe in this God and why we should too.
Yes.
Okay. First, let me define the God that I believe in, and y'all are probably going to hate me for it and maybe hang up on me. Like I just got hung up on by J Mike and Godless Engineer on the
I like
4:30
both of those
show
guys.
of.
I like both of those guys. Don't get me.
I like
I
them
love
too.
that
I wish they
mic,
wouldn't have
man.
hung up on me. I mean, I get it.
Well,
I also get
don't
it.
be
I also
a dick.
understand it.
Otherwise, you might get your tip chopped off or washed, depending on what we're
Yeah,
talking.
no, you can go
what's the
watch
God?
it. At no point was I a dick at all, but I understand that
What's
they
the
might
God?
have found the call they might have found the call frustrating, and that's maybe why they hung up on me. I don't
Sorry,
assume to know why they did it, but I definitely wouldn't say I was
just really
a dick.
quickly to Brent in the chat who said Forrest is making lemonade out of foreskins. Go to bed.
Oh
Yoshi,
my goodness.
please tell me what God you believe in. Let's not talk anymore about all these other shows and stuff. What God are you believing in?
Yes, sir. So I wouldn't put it that way. What God I believe in. I understand there's many conceptions and representations of God, like in Hinduism, a polytheistic religion that has so many different depictions of God, but then they have the one God who would be Brahman, who would be the God of many faces. He's all those gods all wrapped up in one. I guess that's the one that I would believe in, is Brahman. I believe in Brahman, I guess, is the God that I believe in. But I'm a Christian.
Are you using that as an analogy, or are you saying specifically actually believe in the Hindu God? Okay.
Yes, sir, gotcha. Because I wanted to put a name with it to describe the God that I'm I was told that
I just want to ask a real quick question, Yoshi.
Yeah, yes, sir.
You said I believe in Brahman, I guess. And I hate to be this person, but I have to hone in on stuff like that, or I wouldn't be me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand how you believe and you guess. So if you can help reconcile that for me. You said, I believe in Brahman, I guess. Which one is it? Do you believe in Brahman, or do you guess you believe in Brahman?
Forrest covered this. He did a really good job of asking the right question. He asked me if I meant, and so that's why I said it. And then he helped clarify my position a little bit better, because that's what the I guess part was for. So I put that in there for a reason. I said I guess.
But do you realize that guess isn't a clarification, though, right? You do realize that guess isn't a clarification.
I'm so sorry that I didn't clarify from the beginning. Yeah. I'm not perfect, man. I can't do it.
No. And I'm not expecting you
all
to be.
The time.
No, I don't want you to feel attacked at all, Yoshi. I'm not expecting you to be. I'm neurospicy, so I just have to have those delineations so that I can understand. Because there's a distinction between believing and guessing, right? There is a line of distinction there. And so I just want to understand that so I can engage the conversation. So are you saying that you believe that Brahman is God, or are you saying if you had to choose, that's the one you would lean into?
The latter. The latter is what I would say.
Thank you.
And I'm just doing this to try and clarify. So I'm like a language hacker. I try to bridge people together. So I see a gap between atheism and theism, and my instinct draws me to try to bring atheists and theists together so that we can live in peace and harmony on this planet. And then that's, if it's black and white people being racist, I want to build a bridge there. If it's between cis people and trans people, I want to bridge the communication between everyone.
This is all very cool. I don't mean to cut you off. I want to get to the meat of it. So where you believe in this God and you likened it to Brahman, and we've kind of come to an understanding that you're saying that God is everything. It is this many-faceted, many-faced thing that can do all the stuff. I just want to dig in a little further in this so I can understand. Is God all-knowing?
I don't think that would compute in my theological framework. I wouldn't say that that it knows anything really, in a way.
So then let me ask you a different question.
But it is knowing. It is the act of knowing itself. It is that. It's knowing.
Is God an intelligent, thinking individual with desires?
Possibly. That'd be saying my definition of God is the cosmos or the universe or existence itself, a consciousness maybe. And so I would say, like, in a way, absolutely. I think that the universe is, in a way, I don't know. See, that I would say I don't know to that.
So
one.
the reason why I'm asking this is because I'm trying to differentiate. I'm trying to differentiate between an actual Christian God or like Spinoza's God, which is to say the laws of physics and chemistry and everything, the laws of nature on the whole, you just slap the name God on it. And when we use the word like want, like, you know, this pen wants to fall down when I let go of it at 9.81 meters per second squared, it's not, you can't say it's really a want, quote, as it is so much as like it's gonna happen because it's structured that way. And there's no real delineation between something that actually has a mind and has desires and has power and authority to do a thing versus just what you can expect to happen with the universe. And you very quickly get into this fuzzy woo-woo gray area of like, what's it, Deepak Chopra level, like every atom is part of the conscious reality. Every fart has a spirit and blah, blah, blah. And it just, I don't get where we're going. If that's where we're going with it, it is a massive waste of everyone's time. And so just, I want to know, like, do you believe in a God that is actually like a guy? Or is this God just like a vibe? Or does this God have a goal? Like, can you give me anything to work with here beyond just it's stuff that does things?
Okay. Wow, that was kind of a loaded question, but I'm going to try to attempt to make this more interesting because I don't want to waste anybody's time. That's
meant to be more pointed than loaded. But if you think I'm missing something, feel free to tell me.
Okay. Can you ask again, like, and briefly? I'm so sorry. I want to get.
Sure. Yeah.
I kind of feel like I missed your question a little bit.
It sounds like you're saying. It sounds like you are conflating. How should I say this briefly? So the briefest way I can say this is, it sounds like you are just labeling the laws of nature and the existence of everything as a god and attributing just average, everyday, mundane stuff to some sort of divine will in order to avoid actually calling it divine will, but being able to maintain the label of God. So is that what you're doing? Or is your God actually an intelligent thinking agent with identity and with its own individual identity and its own individual desires?
I don't think those are the only two options there, but I would.
What is the option that I'm missing? If the option that I'm missing is what you're saying, then say that. Otherwise, it's not worth getting into. So, which one is it, or is it a different thing that you believe?
Okay. That was the brief version of your question. I'm sorry. My mind it works with fewer words a little bit better, and I'm just gonna talk. Let's see. Okay, so
sure.
I would say the latter, the Spinoza God. See, I guess my real question here, and kind of the one I was trying to get to with the last call that I made with J Mike and them, is why can't we slap that label on there? Like, I understand y'all say it's a waste of time. Then you want to call me Jordan. They wanted to call me Jordan Peterson. Y'all want to call me Deepak Chopra, but I'm not Jordan Peterson or Deepak Chopra. And I might actually have something here that's of use.
I wasn't calling you Deepak Chopra. I was likening that. I want to be clarifying here. I was likening that position to Deepak Chopra, and I'm sure they were likening your position to Jordan Peterson because that is exactly what it is. The reason why this is so useless,
it's not exactly like that. I have a more nuanced take on it, actually, but no one's let me use that.
The reason why this is so useless. Yeah, if you have something different than what I'm saying,
I disagree there. So let's have that
go
argument
ahead, Forrest.
that it's useless or not useless.
Sure.
Well,
so
honestly,
how do you tell the difference? I see now there's a delay. You go ahead, Darante. I'm going to shut the fuck up for like 5 seconds. You do your thing.
Okay. All right. So I just want to hit this because I think this is one of the things that Forrest is trying to help you kind of see here, Yoshi, is that God must have utility to be relevant, right? So just choosing anything and saying, oh, now this is God, That's not an academic pursuit. That's not a pursuit of logic. That's not a pursuit of intelligence. In this case, you're looking for something to call God in spite of what God has already been defined as.
That's
And at that
not
moment,
true.
you're not.
That's the straw man. Straw man.
You can say that's not true, but that's what you presented. You just
No,
presented a
it
God
isn't.
that was
No, it is not.
absolutely useless. Hey, Yoshi, hush the fuck up while I'm talking. So you presented a God, right, that is absolutely useless and said, I want to call it God. And because I want to call it God, other people should respect it. But that's ultimately the problem with pantheism. It's a similar issue with in corporate America. If everything is important, nothing is important. It's the same principle. If everything is God, then nothing is God. You know what I'm saying? If I can take life and say, well, this is life, therefore God, why do I need the additional word? I already have a word for that.
You don't
that is
need
life.
It. You don't.
That has no appeals for supernaturalism.
You don't.
You see what I'm?
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. Now that I've shut the fuck up for a little while, if it's okay that I speak the fuck up now, then I can do that.
Yes.
If that's okay
Come
with
on,
you.
Yoshi.
Okay.
Yes.
Sure.
Okay. So, the reason I said called out straw man is because that's not my position. Is that I feel like we need to be calling the universe God. I do not hold that position. I only have that option if I need to, because my whole family are believers in a very fundamental version of God. I live in the smack dab in the middle of the Bible Belt, and so to get along with the people around me and have any sort of social life, I either got to make all new friends or I can stand my ground and try my hardest in love, that's my God is love. Okay, that if you really want to know, it ain't Brahman or it ain't Yahweh. It's yeah, and I don't think
that's
you
a
guys
different
would
thing
disagree
now,
with
though.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah, sure.
I would.
And
I
I'm
strongly
sorry,
would.
I speak differently about this given whatever situation I'm in. I am like clay, like it says in the Bible. And I don't follow all of the Bible. I pick out the pieces. I cherry pick, and the fundamentalists hate me for this because they want to say that the whole thing's infallible. And I don't believe that. It's been changed so many times. I think a lot of people have manipulated the text for their own gain and stuff like that. And I think some of it was just flat out wrong to begin with. And so I use that holy text, and I say holy because that's what everybody else says, whatever. I don't mean it the same way they mean it. But, I use whatever I get my hands on, the Bhagavad Gita, the Tao Te Ching, any book. I'll pick it up and at least give it a shot. If it ain't got anything in there for me and it doesn't have utility, like you said, then I'll put it down. But anyways, I don't want to take y'all's time up with something that y'all don't find to be interesting or relevant.
It's not that it's not interesting. It's that it's not compelling because you keep changing. Like
I'm not trying to compel you to anything. Yet I haven't even gotten to try to compel you to anything. Well, then let's do it.
Let me do it. You have to understand. From our perspective, like where we're sitting right now, so far, you have told us that you believe in a God, but that the God is this multifaceted, multi-faced thing that is all-encompassing of all different powers, and then the God was actually literally everything. And then you said, I don't believe that God is Brahman after you said that God is Brahman. And then you said that God is love. And then you said that the God is something that we can all agree on.
You're not understanding me.
And well, you're not explaining it well enough then. And here's the issue that I have. Is that, like, I still don't understand.
Give me the floor and I'll try.
You just had like 2 solid minutes of uninterrupted speech. So like,
okay, give me 30 more seconds.
The issue that I have here is that I don't understand. I'm going to ask you just some direct questions here. Do you believe in the Bible?
What does that mean? Do I believe in the Bible? I mean, I believe there's.
Do you believe that the Bible is true? Do you believe that the Bible is true?
I already covered this. Some parts of it are true, and some are not.
That's why I'm asking. Okay,
I'm sorry.
So some parts of it are true. The description of God in the Bible, because there is a character named God in the Bible that's pretty ubiquitous across the whole thing. Do you believe that the Bible is an accurate description and or depiction of the character of God in the real world?
Yes and no. Like some parts of it, yes, and some parts no. And also, God like
Okay.
started
So
out as
then how do you
Elohim,
tell?
and then it was
So
lots of
then
gods, and
how
then
do
it
you
turned into
tell?
one.
Hold on. So then how do you tell which parts of the Bible are accurate depictions of God and which are not?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, how
That's
does
why I asked.
anybody tell that anything's true? And I think
Science.
the other host
Yep.
put
There's a scientific method for that.
method by testing it and by seeing if it has any utility, whether it's relevant or not. And the whole point of this call
Right.
is to try and bridge the language
So
gaps that
I don't need it.
And
don't need
again,
you to
that's-
explain it. I just need you to answer the question, Yoshi. How do
Yes,
you
sir.
personally tell which parts of the Bible you want to accept are an accurate depiction of God
Science.
and which parts you do not accept?
My
You use
own
science to do this.
scientific method, yes, but it's not going to be anywhere near close to yours, Forrest, because I understand you're a very great
Okay,
That's
so-
not
scientist
how the
and a
scientific method
biologist.
works, man.
I am not a great scientist. I'm a mediocre and bitchy scientist, but that's not the point. The point is you have your own individual method of determining which parts of the God of the Bible are accurate and which parts of the God of the Bible are inaccurate. And I agree with you. I think that's actually true. And I think that's true of all Christians. Anybody who believes any part of the Bible does the exact same thing. That's why there's over 40,000 denominations of Christianity, right? So my question to you is then, what is a part of the Bible that describes God in a way that you think is accurate?
The part where it says God is love.
Where does it say that?
You know what? It might not even say that for all I know, because I can't give you the chapter and verse and everything, but I'm pretty sure
Have
it
you
says
read-
it in there.
Have you read your Bible?
Yeah, quite a bit. But I've watched more other atheists talk about the Bible probably than I've even heard Christians talk about it, and I've researched the Apocrypha and
Yoshi,
done. Don't do
that. Don't do that.
And I've read it all the way
Yoshi,
through.
do not claim to have researched the Apocrypha and you don't even know if the Bible says God is love or not. Don't do that. You've already
Why?
overplayed
It's
your hand,
honest.
bruh.
I'm being honest.
It's not honest.
I can't be honest.
You're fucking lying
That's not
at
honest.
this moment.
That's not honest.
You're lying. It's clear.
I'm being completely honest. I'm
If you
telling you,
don't-
I know that the Bible says that God is love, okay? But I'm telling you, I
Western
don't
Bible
know
is
for
only
sure in this moment because
66
I can't
books.
quote the verse to you.
Yoshi, if you can't quote the verse, then you're not as genuine as you think you are, bruh. The Bible is only 66 books as far as the Western version. If you can't remember where it says
Okay,
God is
1
love, and that's
Corinthians-
your argument.
1
I
Corinthians
need you
chapter 13 then, bro.
It's
1
very
Corinthians
easy to
chapter
Google,
13.
bro. You should have
It's John.
Googled it when we first answered. That moment is
And
gone.
honestly, Yoshi, I don't mind if you don't know the exact chapter and verse. I really don't. What bothers me is that you said, I know it's in there. And I said, where? And you said, okay, actually, I don't know if it is in there or not. And then a minute later, you turned around and said, I know for sure it's in there. I just don't know where. Those are three
I meant that
conflicting
two different
statements.
ways.
And then you're going to turn around and say that you're being
different
honest
ways.
with me.
I said the same
False
statement,
news.
but I meant two
Well,
different
we
things
have
when I
not-
said it.
Okay, well, then you need to tighten up your language because it sounds like you're just trying to find a
1
thing to
John
say,
4:8.
whether or not you
1
actually
John
believe it.
4:8.
Yes, that
1
is
John
correct.
4:8.
1 John
God
4,
is love.
1 John,
Well, you're better
1 John
than me.
4,
Good
16
job,
is the one
Forrest.
I know. No,
That's why you've never
nobody's
had a
saying you're
bad
better
day,
than you.
probably.
1 John 4:16 is the one that I know, but it doesn't matter. Before I knew what that verse was, I know for sure that is written in there. And that's where we're having an issue, is that it sounds like you have never actually read this stuff or taken the time to study it. You just know the platitudes.
Absolutely
You've
have.
been to church
No,
a few
I
times.
absolutely have. No,
Give me
sir.
some sec.
No,
I'm
sir.
right in the middle of speaking. You know the platitudes. You've been to church service a few times. You've heard the preacher do the song and dance a few times. You know the parts of the Bible that say that God is beautiful and happy and holy and loving and wonderful and all these things. And then when you are confronted with the parts where God condones slavery and genocide and rape, then it's very easy for you to just out of hand say, well, that's not the God that I believe in. That's not the parts that I like. It's just intellectually lazy. You haven't done the time to actually research any of this. You just found the platitudes that mean something to you and make you feel special as a Christian, whether
No.
that means anything to you or not.
Wrong. That's not true about
So
me.
tell me
You
where
don't
that's
get to
wrong.
say things
Where
that
that's
aren't
wrong.
true about me.
Where is that wrong?
First of all, I visit all the churches in my area, despite what denomination
I
they
just
are.
want to
If
be the
they're
first one to
Seventh-day
say that
Adventists, I
means
don't
absolutely
identify.
nothing.
Can I talk,
Yeah,
dude?
I was
Can
gonna
I
say
talk?
that doesn't change
Absolutely
anything.
nothing.
He
That doesn't change a thing.
He asked me
Weird way
which
to
parts
start.
were wrong about what he said, dude. That is no.
Yeah, and
that
you
does
didn't
not
have anything to do
that
with
does
what I
not
said.
do that.
That didn't have anything to do with what I said. Go on. What's the next part then?
Literally, I was just correcting you because you said the words. You said you've been to church a few times. No, I've been way more than a few times. And literally, like I said, I go to all the churches in my area.
All of them.
And the denomination is no, not of course not all of them. All the ones that I can, man.
That's what you said. I just repeated what you said.
Oh my God!
Just to be clear,
y'all are way too literal in speech. You can't use speech loosely. Like
so
I
when
have
you
to say
said-
exactly the right words,
when
or you
you
guys are going
say-
to jump all
Yoshi,
over me.
Yoshi, when you
Good
said
Lord.
all of them,
Jesus
and then
Christ
we just
and Mary and
joked,
Joseph.
which Jesus? I'm putting you on mute because you're having a fucking temper tantrum. You need to calm down, get your emotions in
Yes.
check, Yoshi. When you said all of them, and we just jokingly, we didn't think you were fucking serious. We just jokingly, all of them, right, just teasing. Then you're going to fly off the fucking handle. Meanwhile, just a second ago, when I said you've been to church a few times, you don't get to take that as hyperbole from me. You don't get to take that as me being loose in my language. You have to go on this fucking tirade about, I go to every church in my community, except that I don't. And it's like, what the fuck is this? Just, can you try to address like the intention or the meaning of what I said to you rather than trying to nitpick while hoping that we don't nitpick you? Just address the point, man. This is getting weird. You're now unmuted, sir.
Thank you for unmuting me.
You're
There's
welcome.
just so many things going on right here, and my brain wants to hit every single point, and so it's hard for me to
Don't
keep
work that
track
way.
of it. Say what?
Call-in shows don't work that way.
They don't.
Okay, I understand how these things work because I've watched hours and hours and hours.
Okay, well then you understand that what you just said is silly, so let's move on past it.
Okay, so again, what I'm trying to do here is to be able to use the language of fundamentalists to try and help them, right? Because they seem stuck in a way where they can't get unstuck. And to me, that
Yoshi,
is hell.
I immediately have to interrupt you again. I immediately have to interrupt you again because we are not fundamentalists and we don't care what fundamentalists think. We're asking you to tell us what you believe and why. Not in this instance, we don't. If I was talking, okay, I'm going to mute you again. If I was talking to a fundamentalist on the phone, I would care what they think and I'd be talking about that. I am talking to you and I'm asking what you believe and why. And so far in 37 minutes, I still don't have a clear picture of what you believe and why, despite giving you multiple opportunities to really, really like pontificate about your beliefs. I just haven't gotten anything useful or meaningful out of you. And what I said earlier, I still now believe is that you've been to church and you've heard some sermons and you know the platitudes of the religion and you don't have much else to go off of beyond that. And so you make up whatever clusterfuck in your head to say God is this and God is that and God is good and God is love and good. But God does all these things, but is there really intentionality? But God is everything, but not really everything, but in this way and that way. And it makes sense to you, but it doesn't make sense to anybody else. And all I want to know is the question that you never answered significantly is like, why? Why are you able to look at the Bible and say this one verse where God is love makes sense, but all the parts where God is pretty definitionally not love, you're able to just reject? Like, what's going on with that? How do you come to the understanding that you have of your God?
All right, this conversation is pretty much over because we're not understanding one another. I don't even know. Like the screener made me answer the atheist versus theist question. And listen, let me talk. I'm about to wrap it up.
Darante,
Okay?
do you understand me?
Somebody else.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
I
Absolutely,
understand you
Forrest.
100%, Boris. Yes.
Okay. I also understand everything that Darante has said so far. So it sounds like the issue isn't we're not understanding each other. We're just not understanding
Y'all
you.
don't understand
How
me.
do you
Okay,
know?
good.
How do you know which parts of the Bible are accurate depictions of God and which ones are not?
Mhm.
Through the scientific method, not my scientific method, but the scientific method. The co-host misunderstood me earlier because I was sloppy with my words. I take responsibility for that.
What experiment did you run, and what was the
Yikes.
hypothesis that you tested?
Okay, so the experiment that I ran is learning through my own experience what words I
Strike
can
one.
use to get across my meaning and which words would not work. And yes, I have not peer
Better
reviewed it or
question.
anything like that.
I should have asked those in different order. What was the hypothesis that you tested?
I don't know what the word hypothesis means at the moment.
How the fuck are you going to sit here and tell me you use the scientific method, which is hypothesis driven, if you don't know what hypothesis means?
I don't. You can say it in another way,
So
and then I'll
what
know what
this
it means.
means is,
You're
Yoshi,
lazy. You only will use the one
what
word.
you're
You
telling
don't know
me,
another word to
Yoshi,
say hypothesis, bro?
I do. I
Yoshi's
teach it for a
struggling.
living.
Then do
The
it.
issue
Then
is that
do
you
it.
don't.
Stop
You
being-
don't. You have. I'm just going to put him on mute again. Yoshi, you have got to get your emotion under control. It's embarrassing. It's weird. How are
Yoshi's
you
a
going to
child,
tell me
man.
that you use the scientific method if you don't know what the scientific method is? I will now unmute you. Please answer that question.
So I actually learned from you better than I've learned from anybody else what the scientific method is because I watch your videos and that you do a great job, man.
Okay.
But I can't remember in this moment how to say it in your language. So I'll say it in my own language because that's all I can do.
Let me try a different way then. What was the question that you were testing to derive an answer to?
Does God exist in any form or fashion that I can call God?
So the hypothesis is God exists, and you're going to see if you can reject or fail to reject that hypothesis. This is the way the scientific method works. So the hypothesis is God exists. Okay? How are we going to now test this hypothesis to see whether we reject or fail to reject that hypothesis?
Okay. So
what experiment did you run?
Okay. I ran the experiment of trying to find a God, and it failed. I could not find one. So what I did instead was say, okay, what do people mean when they say that word then? Because a lot of them like to use it. So I found that there were some people in the East who had a different understanding than the one that I was raised with, and that their God encompassed all things. And so I said, okay, I believe that, things exist.
You have yet.
So
you are not describing experiment. You're describing lit review base at best. You're describing you looking around.
Then I've been lazy and I did no experiments then. Okay, and we'll just leave it at that.
So
I'm an idiot and I'm lazy and I'll go do it. Sure, buddy. Sure. I
take care, Yoshi.
We could talk.
Yep. That ended where I thought it would.
Back. I'm not.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm sorry if you had anything else to say to him. I didn't think you did. I should have asked before I hung up. But
I did not.
Yeah.
There was nothing to say there.
At a certain point.
Nope.
Yeah.
Nope.
Just if I used the scientific method to learn what parts of the Bible tell me what God is and what God isn't. Okay. What experiment did you run? Well, I was testing whether God exists in the first place, which is different than what you said. And then the experiment was, I saw some people believe in God. That's not what? So just, I don't know, man. Yoshi, please organize your thoughts and call us back and tell us what you believe and why you believe it, because that's what we're here for. Also, we were talking about circumcision at the beginning, and I made sure to pull out, this is my favorite part. This is in the book of Exodus, chapter 4. Yes. So this is, the burning bush has just happened and everything. And God's like, go, Moses, and tell the people about me and how big my dick is. And Moses goes, as the Lord says unto him, who has made your mouth and who makes people blind and deaf and blah, blah, blah. and he's telling people, go out there and tell them that I'm around. The Lord said unto Moses, go, return to Egypt, for the men are dead which sought thy life. That's wild. So Moses is now leaving. This is in chapter 4, verse 24 is when this happens. Moses leaves. Moses is at the burning bush, talks to God, fucks off back to Egypt. The next line, verse 24, and it came to pass by the way of the inn that God met him and sought to kill him. Literally immediately after leaving the burning bush situation, God's like, you know what though? Fuck this guy. And is like just gonna kill Moses. And then verse 25 says, then Zipporah took a sharp a stone and cut off the foreskin of her son and cast it at his feet and said, surely a bloody husband art thou to me. So he let him go. And she said, a bloody husband thou art because of the circumcision. So first of all, what the fuck does that mean? But more importantly is that Moses met God at the burning bush, and God was like, go to Egypt and tell Egypt all about me. So Moses starts walking away, and God immediately comes up behind him to kill him, and somebody cuts his dick, and God's like, I am thwarted, and can't, and then God's cool. And I'm like, what is this story, y'all? What is this? He's saved by a fucking emergency field circumcision, and I don't understand why. And I've yet to meet anyone who can explain it to me. That's a fun part of the Bible. What a moral story.
I want to see that movie now. I want to see that movie, and I want it to be narrated that way.
It's the deleted scene from The Prince of Egypt that had a whole song and dance number about it. It was wild. Oh man. We've got one theist on the line and then two atheists that we're going to talk to. There's still lines open, it seems. Number at the bottom of the screen, 720-619-2288, or use the web link in the description. If you believe in a God and you want to tell us all about it, or tell us why we should believe in it, would be preferable. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to talk about this. So next, we're going to talk to Kyle, who is a repeat caller. Kyle actually has a really cool story, and I'd love for him to get to talk to you. Who wants to say that all cultures hold some belief in a God and wants to know where that comes from. Kyle, you are on the line with Forrest and Darante. How are you doing today?
What's up, man? Guys?
What's up,
It's going
Kyle?
really well. Yeah, so Kyle, you just to fill everybody in on your saga, is that you called in as a Christian, you deconstructed with us, and then you reconstructed without us, and now you've just been calling in with like cool questions. And you're just exploring the nature of religion and stuff, and it's always a pleasure to talk to you. So we're glad to have you back. So I read what I got on the screen here is that all cultures hold some belief in a God. Where does that come from? Do you have like a particular thing that got you down this road that you want to dig into, or do you just want us to start rambling?
Oh, all right. So I'm probably going to end up rambling, but I will try to make sense out of all of it. So like what are your guys' thoughts on like Christians will automatically say, well, God just always is, like that's their answer for who created God? Nobody created God, he just always was. And it's just like it seems like the concept of God is like universal, and so I wanted your guys' insight on the beginning of that concept.
Yeah.
I love this one. I'll jump in just real quickly for us.
Please do.
The first one that I like to add is that no, all cultures do not have a belief about a God. That is a Western imposition. There are many cultures who do not have a word, a language, or a phraseology for God, or even a concept. But of course, because of Western imperialization and colonialism, there are things that have gotten syncretized that were not necessarily there before. So all cultures have had a relationship with the world around them. Some of those cultures have moved that into a realm of supernaturalism. Many have not. The problem is, though, is that especially those of us who are more acclimated to Western cultures, when we go into cultures that are not Western cultures, whatever we see that looks like spiritism, we call it God. And we tell them, therefore, that is God, you have God too. And that's really not an accurate way to view the world. So no, all cultures do not hold that view. And the second thing I'll just add, just from a sociological perspective, God has an origin. So like when you're looking for God based on the Bible, it's hard to find an origin. But when you're looking for God based on reality, it's actually very easy to find God because God does not predate humanity. In no historical records that we have so far, God does not predate humanity. To take it an even step further, God does not predate human language. God does not predate human conversation. And so from a sociological perspective, when I look for the origin of God, I don't look for the universe, I look for the human mind, because that's where the origin of God is. This is why the God of all religions that have a God is horribly obsessed with human behavior. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Because God
Yeah,
himself is a human invention.
I have nothing cooler than that to say. That was straight fucking bars. That was fantastic. That was really good.
Fuck yeah. Man, another thing that fucks me up is like Christianity. Would you say of all the like major religions, that if you included Catholicism, that Christianity would be the most popular?
No, I'll tell you why. And I forget, I hate for answering so quick. I'll only say why, because I technically don't consider Christianity a solid religion. There's over 40,000 different denominations. That makes it an outlier of any other religious group. There is no other religious group that has that many factions that is considered a united belief system. And so if you actually put these 40,000 different factions in the same room, there is nothing about their beliefs that's coherent enough to be considered a solid religion. So no, I wouldn't consider that Christianity would be the world's most popular religion. As a matter of fact, I think that's the biggest illusion that Christianity has attached itself to. There are only 10,000 documented religions in the world, and Christianity has 40,000 different denominations in that one religion. It is no longer a religion. You know what I'm saying? It is. It is division all the way down.
If I didn't become open-minded, I would reject all of that. But I can't. But what I was gonna follow up with that is, I've always heard that history repeats itself. So now that I think about it, it would make sense if I was to say, like, how did all these writers of the 66 books we have, how did they manage to come up with like teachings that still relate thousands of years, whatever time frame it is, how it can still relate, like Christians will say that the Bible is lived alive. So it just kind of was amazing in a weird sense that it can still, you know what I mean, play a part in your daily life, I guess.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure.
And then the existence of God. Would you say that the concept of like sin and stuff would be the same way?
Oh, for sure.
Largely, yeah. So yeah. Well, I was going to say it's largely when we look at, like, we talked the very first call, we were talking about like ritual and like how that's pretty ubiquitous. Yes. The concept of like taboo is also like this thing that we see associated with these kind of practices, and then that becomes, so like when we use the word sin in Western culture, as Darante was just very, very, very rightly pointing out, we are kind of prescribing our Western ideology of what a god looks like onto these other cultures and other practices. When we use the word sin, what we often mean is what this God doesn't want. That's what sin means.
Yep.
Right.
It doesn't mean bad. It doesn't mean anything. It means God said not to, and you did it anyway. And so, like, yes,
Right.
the concept of taboo, the concept of social, doing something that's socially inappropriate versus it becomes this ritualistic thing where there's actually something that you're not allowed to touch, not allowed to perceive, not allowed to desecrate or defile. It becomes sacred. It becomes whatever. That is a constant that we can see across cultures and across time history in a variety of different religions, even things that you wouldn't actually call religions. And then for us to then loop that in and say now it's going to be called sin because we are applying our Western heuristic to it. That is absolutely, yes, 100%.
I got you. It's almost like the Muslims attacking Christians. That would be a righteous thing for the Muslims to do, and vice versa.
Because they have
essentially,
the
I guess.
wrong version of the same God.
Man, it's fucking crazy, man. So,
It is.
so
Yeah, dude.
then,
Yeah, dude.
not that I have to have a title of agnostic, theist, but if I believe that there is something, like, I'm not gonna throw like if I believe that God is the universe. I think that you can pretty much pick and choose whatever you want to claim to be God. I do believe that there is something higher than all of us, obviously unexplainable, unimaginable, and made up, and it's essentially. God,
You know what's crazy is that it's crazy how almost I agree with you. You know, like the biggest difference is that I don't think it's unexplainable. I think it's unexplained, but I don't think it's unexplainable.
Yes.
I just call it physics and chemistry and science and shit. Like, as we are learning more about this every day. Like, if you're going to take that Spinoza's God kind of framework, that God is just the filler word for the laws of the universe as we understand them, we understand them better every day. And
Yes.
I know we've talked about this before, Kyle, but like, that what a lot of people who are actually hardline creationists or whatever will do is that anything that science hasn't explained, well, that's God. That's why you can't explain it. And then the second we explain it, well, that's God. That's why it's so complex. And so, like, it's just this deliberate reframing of ignorance. And so, like, yeah, I think, like I say, it's wild how almost I agree with what you're saying, because I agree that there's something bigger than us. It's the fucking universe that we live in. I agree there's power greater than ours. It's physics. You can't beat it. I just don't prescribe intentionality or personhood or any of that to it because there's no reason to. And I don't give it a name because it already has one. It's just reality.
Okay. All right. I just gonna have to like chime in whenever I remember. I don't want to like put a title on myself, but I believe in something greater than myself. I still keep the open-mindedness that that a God could exist. So obviously, that wouldn't be atheist.
Yeah, that's not.
Absolutely.
Well, no, that's not. You could actually be an atheist and still be open-minded to the possibility. An atheist is just a person who is not convinced. I haven't been convinced yet. But you being an atheist doesn't, and I think that is a strong misunderstanding of atheism. Atheism does not mean closed-minded to the possibility that a God exists. Atheism means that I don't have enough information where I could stand on that claim and say that God exists. So I just don't have enough information. So no, you could absolutely be an atheist and still hold out and still be open-minded to that. And honestly, that's what we'd hope all atheists are. We're not out here hoping that a God doesn't exist because we hate God. At this moment, it's not a reasonable claim to attach ourselves to.
Yeah.
Well, then, in a sense, by that definition, wouldn't, like, since none of us, obviously, you can listen to all the believer callers and realize that everybody believes differently, believes different things about this God, sees him in a different way, this, that, or the other. But we're all unsure on what God is, who God is, how God is. So essentially, by that definition, are we all atheists? And we just,
no,
I wouldn't be mad at it. I wouldn't be mad at it,
Well,
but I don't think it's accurate.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it sounds great. Yeah, so like there's the it's kind of tricky because like the honest truth and the shitty truth is that when you throw these terms around, people are going to use them differently all the time, and it sucks.
Yep.
But the actual definition of the words that matters is that atheism is the antithesis of theism, which is just the belief in a God. So if you do actually believe there is a thing called a God, you're a theist. If you're not convinced, whether that be you think there is no God or you just are open-minded, as Darante was saying, that whole group would be clustered into atheist. Now, the question is, like, whether you say there isn't or you don't know or you're just not convinced or whatever, you get into Gnosticism, and a lot of people use the word agnostic to say, I'm on the fence and I'm kind of trying to decide and figure it out. That's not actually the appropriate use of the word, but it is the popular one, and so it has become the definition. Gnosticism means you know something for sure. So you can be a Gnostic theist, meaning you know there is a God, or you can be an agnostic theist, where you believe there's a God, but you're not saying for sure. You can be a Gnostic atheist and say you know there is no God. And you can be an agnostic atheist and say you don't believe in a God because you don't have enough evidence and you're waiting to have your mind changed, which I think is the most honest position. And I'm pretty sure pretty much everybody on this channel is going to be in that position. Because if you are a Gnostic atheist, you also need evidence for that positive claim that there isn't this thing that exists. You know what I mean? So like for us, like we're going to sit here and say we are agnostic atheists. We are not convinced that there's a God. If anybody shows up and proves that there's a God, we would be the first ones to say that God is real. I'd still say he's a dick, but he's definitely real. But at this moment, it's like, I think I might have mentioned to you before, like, you know, if I tell you there's an elephant behind my bookshelf here, you can either say, yes, there is, no, there isn't, or I don't believe you. Yes, there is, or no, there isn't requires evidence. I don't believe you. You're agnostic. You're an atheist. You're an elephantist. You're not saying there isn't an elephant. You're just saying, I don't have a reason to take you seriously until you give me something to bank on here. And that is exactly what we're saying for God.
Right. Holy fuck, man.
That's good stuff, ain't it, Kyle?
It's every day. It's every day for us. This is what we do for a living.
That is good, but bro, if you're not like dead set that you believe in this specific God, this, that, or the other, the extreme people of whatever belief, it's like, bro, they get fucking hateful if you aren't on the same page as them, and it just fucking sucks. Now,
well, I mean, it's like being back on the playground. It's like being back on the playground and being the kid that doesn't believe in Santa. You're going to get picked at by everybody else because, like, who are you not to believe in Santa? You know, it's that shit all over again.
Right. Now,
it's craziness.
Now, Darante, I think I've called once before whenever I was kind of deconstructing with you and Matt before, but it was very brief, and you talked to a lot of people, so I don't expect you to remember me. Forrest, I expect you to remember me. But now, Forrest, I've asked you before if you don't believe in the resurrection, but the resurrection is still possible.
I don't know how it would be. But yeah, people come back from the dead from time to time, but not after 3 days, you know? Right. And also, if you're saying the resurrection, you know, if you're a Christian calling in to say you ask me about the resurrection, my first question is which one? Because there is 4 different versions in the Bible of the resurrection.
That's right.
So it's like which one are you talking about?
Right. And that's what I was going to ask. If the resurrection isn't logically possible, then what makes the idea possible at all? But you just basically answered it.
Yeah, it's not. Is it worth your time? You know what I mean? Because like if you read the Bible, you know, it's different. Is there? You know, was Jesus gone immediately when the people got there, or was Jesus's body there and then he ascended in front of them? Was there one angel there? Were there 2 angels there? Were the angels there when they got there? Did they appear before them? Were the angels sitting on top of the stone or next to it? Was the stone in place and then rolled away, or was the stone already rolled when they got there? Did they see this directly, or did they have to go see it and then report back to the people? Was it a bunch of women that did it? Was it a bunch of dudes? Like, these are all differences between these the 4 major gospels. And so you can try to weave this together if you'd like. And I think Bart Ehrman, if I remember on a show a little while ago, like I had to read this quote from Bart Ehrman, who was basically saying like the only way to make this make sense is to say that everything the Bible didn't say happened is actually what happened. That's the only way you can make it consistent, is anything they wrote down, disregard it. And like that's just overall you get this kind of issue where it just doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't hold up. And also then you apply reality to it. Like, people can wake up sometimes, but 3 days of rot, 3 days of no oxygen, 3 days of your brain breaks down within minutes. Like, so it's just not going to happen unless you have divine intervention, and then you have more questions. Because even if you could prove that Jesus did actually come back from the dead, okay, that doesn't prove anything about him being the Son of God. That doesn't prove anything about him being there being a God for him to be the son of. Doesn't prove that he walked on water. Doesn't prove that he turned water into wine. Doesn't prove any of each one of those crazy fucking claims needs its own evidence. So like, you show me somebody who could come back from the dead, I think that's real neat. I want to run some tests on that guy. I'm not going to start believing in some monster in the sky who cares about how much foreskin I have.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. Well, anyway, Kyle, I hope this answers all your questions. You have anything else before we proceed to move on?
Yeah, I know you know a lot about like bodies and what chemicals and shit do to the bodies, and
I know a fortunate amount about bodies.
Bro, not to do like drugs will lead you to God, but I have done psychedelics before, and it's like is there an explanation to what things like psychedelics do to the body that make it feel like you tapped into a different realm of some sort, if that makes any fucking sense?
We would be getting into like some real serious like pharmacology and shit at this point, and that is above my pay grade. That's not something I'm trained in. I can tell you that there's some really good resources out there on what specific things like LSD versus psilocybin or whatever like these things do to the brain, and why one of them is more euphoria, the other one is more confidence, why psilocybin is so helpful with things like anxiety and depression and whatever, like, and PTSD, because of its specific ways that it bonds these specific receptors and does these specific things. Those are things I would encourage you to look into. And I would also say that like I have also done mushrooms and pot and LSD. I have also done some psychedelics in my day, quite a bit. Okay. And I was an atheist the whole time, and I came out of it an atheist too. So like, I was no more or less atheist when I went in or when I came out. Although the one time when I did mushrooms, I was pretty spiritual at that point in my life, and I felt very connected to the earth, because that's what happens. It just enhances a part of your brain that it's part of your psyche that's already there. You know what I mean?
That answered my question.
I would definitely say the same year I started smoking pot is the same year I became an atheist. So I don't know if that says anything.
Funny enough, I know somebody else that's the same case, because it's like they just started thinking about it and they're like, oh shit, I've never thought about this before, and it doesn't fucking work. Yeah. Yep. That's why they call it the devil's lettuce, kids. It'll lead you away from God.
Yes, okay, and I will end on a well-known topic. The head tattoo, Darante, if you're not familiar, I got really fucking stuck into Christianity. I know how quickly I get interested in desires, interests, passions. So I went and got fucking Romans chapter 12, verse 2, tattooed completely on the top of my head. And I was calling, and Forrest hit me with the sunk cost fallacy, and it kind of resonated with me. It made sense. And so I did not get it covered up, but I got ballsy enough to do like face tattoos and stuff. So now it's people don't even give a fuck about what's on my head. They're like, what the fuck's on your face?
You know what? The distraction method. That's a great way to do it. Kyle, like, seriously, dude, I don't know. Have we ever talked about, like, do you have, like, what's your educational background? Like, have you ever had a chance to explore, like, college or anything like that?
Same thing. I was afraid. Like I graduated high school at like 17, and then I was like, well, let me take a fucking year off. Let me enjoy life for a minute. And then I got a felony, and then I was like, well, I'm fucked. And then I started covering my whole body in tattoos. And I didn't really think about college because I didn't want to like get in a bunch of debt, go in for something.
Right.
And then I knew, after I almost completed that, I'd be interested in pursuing something else.
Well, I tell you, man, the reason I ask is because like the questions that you ask every time you call in are amazing. And the way you respond to new information is great. And so like, I really think like, I don't know where you're at in Illinois, but like, if there's a community college near you and you can sit down with a financial aid advisor or with an academic advisor who can talk you through filling out a FAFSA and whether or not with your felony, whether or not you'd be able to get a Pell Grant. Because like at a community college level, like 1,000 level courses, they're basically paying you to go to college if you get a Pell Grant, because the Pell Grant covers it and then some. So you make like $1,500 a semester extra, and you're still taking these classes basically for free. And so like I think honestly, with the things you ask us, if you went in and actually studied like anthropology, sociology, like I think you would have a fucking blast. Honestly,
Absolutely.
I really do. And I think you're smart. I think you're more than smart enough for it. The questions that you ask are not dumb questions, and they're not questions that dumb people ask. And so like, I think as someone who has been an educator for a long time, the questions you ask tell me that your brain is working real good and you need to be digging into that further. And if you study cultural anthropology or sociology, psychology has the highest dropout rate, and the more people sign up for it and drop out of it than any other degree, because everybody thinks it's fucking easy. And it's just, I'm going to learn how brains work, and it's actually pretty detailed. But sociology is a little more specific on the kind of questions that you ask. And especially like cultural anthropology has a lot to do, like where beliefs come from, where religions come from, where these ideas come from, why people do what they do. If you took a 1,000 level introductory intro to cultural anthropology course, I think you'd be over the fucking moon with the kind of cool stuff you're learning. And if you get a Pell Grant to cover it, you'll make some cash going to school, and it'd be pretty tight. So I encourage you to just look up your local community college and talk to an academic advisor or a financial aid advisor and just see what your options are, because you're too fucking smart to not be digging into this and like scratching that itch in your brain. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah, man. That's the lasting fucking thought stuff. Now, anyway. All right, I'm gonna re-listen to this. I love you guys. I love the chat, and you guys are all fucking awesome. And have a good night.
Oh,
you too, Kyle. We love you so much, man. Call back anytime.
All right, bro.
Take care, dude.
Y'all.
Bye. I really fucking hope Kyle follows through with that. Like, I'm not trying to tell him what to do. I do too. Life, but like, I think he would get a lot out of it. I really do, and I think he's smart enough. At worst, honestly, by a lot.
Even if he can't get the Pell Grant, because of the other situations, if he'd at least audit some courses, I think it would take him a long way. And I think it would activate some shit in him that would just be like absolutely beautiful.
I didn't even think about auditing courses. That's a great idea as well.
Yes. Yeah, I'm an auditor. I do whatever I can.
That's tight. That's awesome. So we've got, and I guess what really pissed me off is like, I know I've heard that line of thinking that he's like, well, I got these tattoos and I got a felony. I don't know what I'm going to do. Dude, none of that is the end of your life. None of that is the end. That is the beginning of your life. Sometimes that's the beginning of something beautiful. Go fucking capitalize. Invest in yourself, man. Invest in you. It's worth it.
I love that. Man.
Oh, and also one really quick thing. When I was talking about the difference between theism and Gnosticism and all that stuff, I saw a few people in the chat who were talking about like they want a diagram. You don't need a diagram. You need a Punnett square like you're doing genetics. And so you just doodle out, put a square, and then put a square in the square. And so you have theist and atheist, and you have Gnostic and agnostic here. Those are G's. I swear to fucking God. My handwriting's bad on a good day, and I'm on this angle.
G-strings.
And so here you have G-strings. So here you have, actually reverse these letters. Here you have Gnostic theist here. I believe there's a God and I know it for sure. Down here you have agnostic theist down here. Over here you have Gnostic atheist over here. And here you have agnostic atheist over here. And so you can doodle this out this way and it'll make a lot more sense than if you try to do like a weird Venn diagram situation.
Beautiful, man.
I haven't drawn a
Oh,
Punnett
damn,
square.
this has been great. Right? I haven't seen a Punnett square since school, man. So, like, you just took me back a little bit.
I do them. I have to do them so often. So we've got one. The lines are now closed because we've been going for a while. We got one more theist caller, then we got 3 atheists and 1 agnostic that we're gonna go through as quickly as we can. But we're gonna take this next theist caller. We got C. Frank. I don't know if that's intentional or if it's just Frank. Can I call you C? I don't know. But we've got C. Frank here calling in all the way from the frozen hellscape of Canada. Who is a theist who says there are reasons to believe in God. Also, pronoun listed as male. That's not a pronoun, but whatever. C. Frank, you are on the line with Forrest and Darante. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Awesome.
I'm doing really well. I'm doing really well. I can hear you just fine. You know male isn't a pronoun, right?
I did not know that.
Yes.
Yikes.
Male is an adjective or a noun, but not a pronoun. But that's okay. Would you prefer to be referred to as he, him?
Sure, that's fine.
All right, he, him pronouns for C. Mike. So, or C. Frank. So, tell us. You say there are reasons to believe in God. Which God do you believe in?
I believe in the Christian God.
Ooh.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
Darante, do you have any intro questions? Because I have a couple that I want to just know to be safe.
Yeah. Okay. So what is my and I guess it's just the biggest question is, why do you believe in the Christian God?
Mm-hmm.
I believe in a creator, and I believe that if God were real, he would have made some effort to reveal himself to us. And I think that Jesus Christ is the best example of this that we have out of all the religions. So I think that Jesus Christ is most likely to be God.
All right.
Okay.
So, see, Frank, I do want you to understand that none of that was evidentiary. All of that was, I just believe this because I heard a story that I liked. Do you realize that's what you just said? That I heard this story that I liked, and that's true for me now. Do you realize that's what you just said to us?
I guess that's partially true.
Yikes. All right.
And that's fine, because he did just ask, why do you believe? But like, it's important to point out that, like, if that's where you're coming in with, then like, it kind of leaves us on fuzzy ground, especially when you're saying like, Jesus is the most likely to be God out of all the other options. It compels me that my immediate follow-up question is, I'm going to be like, what other options have you explored, and how seriously have you explored them?
Well, I think that God exists based on science, because of
that wasn't my question.
Okay.
That's not what I asked. That's not what I asked you.
Okay. Well, repeat your question.
Okay. Well, all right. So that tells me you may not have been listening, and that's rude. But like, let me try again. Is just like, you said that Jesus is the most likely God out of all these other options. How seriously have you explored the other options, and what other options have you explored?
Well, I've looked up the beliefs of other religions, like the Greek gods, and it just seems kind of absurd to me. Like, the chief Greek god was like having sex with animals and stuff like that, and they have gods for like agriculture and childbirth and stuff like that. It just seems kind of strange to me. That doesn't seem.
Zeus had sex with a lot of people too, as the god of the Bible also had sex with a person.
Wait, say that again.
I said Zeus had sex with humans, as the god of the Bible did as well. So, like, what I don't understand is like, you're drawing this line. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I think in one of the stories, he took the form of an animal, and he had sex with a woman. He raped a woman as an animal.
Yeah,
well, even
God did that as a person to Mary.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's exactly what I was going. Like, that's
the God of the Bible.
The story of Mary
the God of the
that.
Bible didn't. Well, the God of the Bible didn't have intercourse.
But he did impregnate somebody large, like in a way that would not have possibly been consensual, which sucks. But that's not the point. That's neither here nor there. The point is, like, you're drawing this line at, like, you're bringing up like this polytheistic situation. You're like, it's just absurd to me because like this is a different God for like agriculture and pregnancy and all these different things. And that's like monotheism. As far as I remember, I'm not a scholar of religion. Darante might actually be able to speak to this better than I could. But like monotheism, as far as I remember, started with Judaism. And that's why Christianity split off of that, and then Islam and Mormonism and whatever else split off of Christianity. And so it sounds to me like you're in this heuristic, you're in this framework that you like, and you're judging other religions by your framework of what you consider absurd, without recognizing that what you're saying is also pretty absurd by any other framework. Can I ask you, before you respond, you're welcome to respond to what I said, but I also want to ask, just as a clarifying question, were you raised Christian?
I was not. I was atheist for most of my life.
Were you raised in Canada?
Yes.
Okay. Was your family Christian?
No. I think my mom believed. My dad was atheist.
Okay, so so you were around Christianity, you grew up around Christianity. There were Christian symbols all around you at all times. There are churches in your wherever you grew up. Like,
Thank you.
Your Christianity is still the dominant religion of the world that you live in, the slice of the world that you live in at most. And so that's kind of how propaganda works, is that it's not necessarily just telling you something over and over until you believe it's true. It's that it's taking up space in your mind. And it sounds to me like you are just used to, having grown up around Christianity, you're used to it sounding not crazy. So that way, when you now judge other religions by the lens of Christianity, you're able to say, oh, well, they have all these gods and the gods having sex with a bunch of people and that's all nuts. And it's no weirder than anything in the Bible by a long shot. You know what I mean?
I mean, I kind of see where you're coming from a little bit, but I think it's kind of, I don't think it'd be necessary to have gods for things like war, agriculture, wisdom, stuff like that. I don't know why you would need separate gods.
You have that. You have that. They just all have the same name.
See, Frank, can I ask you, why didn't you feel the need to compare God of the Christian Bible with Allah of Islam? Why would you choose to compare the Christian God against the God that nobody by far and large worships today, as opposed to comparing the Christian God with one of the second largest religions in the United States on the planet? So honestly, to me, to compare Christianity to Greek mythology, it just seems disingenuous to begin with, because by far and large, we do not have an issue on this planet where anybody considers Zeus a realistic counterpart of a religious god. But there are several billion people who worship Allah. So my question would be, what would be your differentiation between Yahweh and Allah? Because I have a sneaky suspicion you'd have a hard time drawing that line.
I think in Islam, they believe that in paradise, you'll get like 96 or 70 some virgins. And to me, that sounds like sex slavery. I don't think that's something that God would actually allow. To me,
okay, I got to ask you a question there. I'm so glad you said that, C. Frank. How is heaven not regular slavery? How is heaven not regular slavery? So is your problem just sex slavery?
Question than I had.
So if it's just sex, it's bad. But regular slavery, it's okay. If I forced you to be here, if you obey me, you die forever. But if you just hear and it's not sex, it's okay slavery. But now if it's sex slavery, it's bad. See, Frank, do you see the mess hole you just walked yourself into?
I have a totally different huge issue of what you said. Yeah, I have a totally different huge issue. Like the 76 virgins things, as far as I know, that's a pretty niche situation in Islam, but I don't know for sure. But let's say that it is ubiquitous. What you're going to say that God wouldn't be cool with sex slavery? The God of the Bible is very cool with sex slavery. He condones it quite a bit. So how is it different? Like, when you have, Iron Age Palestine, and it's like, yeah, no, it's okay if you slaughter the civilization and keep all the virgin girls for yourself, or if you rape a virgin, you can pay her father however much silver and then she's your property, and like all this other stuff. How is that different than when you go to the theme park in the sky? I guess there just has to be 76 times more women than there are men in the world, and they have to all die. How is there a difference there, C. Frank?
I don't think, I don't know that that's true, but.
About the God of the Bible condoning slavery?
Yeah.
Oh, damn.
Yeah,
then you
the
haven't
Bible
read
is
the Bible, bruh.
Yeah, the Bible is a pro-slavery book front to back, sex slavery included.
Yes. I mean, that's kind of
It's
terrible of the
very-
10 virgins.
Yes. Are you talking about dueling vaginas? That's one of my favorite stories.
Why would you consider it sex slavery in the Bible?
Because you are literally buying and selling people as property, and it's very emphatic that they must be virgins, and it's kind of implied.
But you have to marry them, and you only have one wife, and you're married to her. I don't see that as equal to being.
Have you never read the story of David or Solomon?
Yes.
And you think they only had one wife?
Solomon definitely had a lot of wives. I don't know that they were sex slaves. They were probably.
I mean,
if he
what
had
would you
as many
call it
wives,
after the first wife? Do you remember the
Right.
story
well,
of
if
Ruth?
he had,
The
if
story
he had
of
as many
Esther.
wives as the Bible says he has, I doubt they were having much sex, because he would have to have sex with, like, I don't know, 3 girls a day.
That's the whole point
purpose.
that's the whole point of a harem. See, but the issue is that like the main problem is that, like, whatever you want to label this as, we're talking about marriage not as a social construct the way we see it today, where it's like this life partnership. This is marriage as a form of socioeconomic imposement of power. Like this is a property situation. The Bible is very anti-feminist as well as it is pro-slavery. It is very anti-woman, and it's very clear that women are property when they are in a marriage. You are buying a woman to act as this maidservant to you. And so, like, especially having lots of them, especially with concubines, which are like a frequent thing, like even if we get away from sex slavery, like you can agree that the Bible is pro-slavery in general, right?
I'd hope so.
Well, I will answer that question, but I want to say that God doesn't condone having multiple wives. I think Solomon did that, but that's not something that God allows. I think God says somewhere in the Bible that you're not supposed to multiply your wives. I think that's
not a scripture at all. That's not a scripture at all.
No, God does say you're not to multiply your wives.
Even if I believe you, okay.
That's not.
See, Frank, even if I believe you, I can tell you just in terms of regular slavery, where women have different rules than men do. And so even if you want to take sex slavery out of it, it's still misogynistic, it's still patriarchal, and it's still pro-slavery. Like cover to cover, the Bible is pro-slavery book.
Where does the Bible condone sex slavery?
No, I said even outside of sex slavery. We're talking about just slavery in general, like chattel slavery.
I can answer that question for him. I can answer. He
If
says,
you'd like,
when does the Bible?
I just don't want to get
the Bible condone sex slavery? When Abraham takes Hagar as a sex slave, when God commands the children of Israel to take the people of Canaanite and their daughters as sex slaves. Like, bruh, you cannot ask these questions if you've not actually read the book. Like, that's the like, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to get aggravated as fuck every time I hear you or somebody like this say some shit like this, because the only thing you're demonstrating is that you've never freaking read the book. It's clearly
Abraham never took
While you were
Hagar
talking, I went ahead and I just pulled up my own note here on this is Exodus 21 verse 7. When a man sells his daughter as a slave, she will not be freed at the end of 6 years as the men are. If she does not satisfy her owner, she must allow her to be bought back again. He is not allowed to sell her to foreigners and blah, blah. It goes on and on about how to sell your daughter and how she must satisfy her owner. Now, you can take that and twist it and say, well, they meant like satisfy in terms of work. like she's doing work, because she's actually, this is chattel slavery, not necessarily sex slavery. If that's the hill you want to die on, fine. But at the end of the day, what I'm trying to get across here is that if we want to split hairs and say this isn't really sex slavery, you can't get around the fact that it is slavery. Like, no matter what, the Bible is pro-slavery. Can we agree on that, C. Frank?
It definitely allows slavery.
No, doesn't allow. God commands it. God condones and commands and gives explicit instructions on how to own slaves.
Thus saith the Lord.
Yep.
He tells you where to buy them from. He tells you how to beat them. He tells you that they are your property to pass down to your children. He tells you how Hebrew slaves are be treated differently than non-Hebrew slaves, and how to trick Hebrew slaves into being treated as non-Hebrew slaves. One of those involves women, which are never to be treated as non-Hebrew as Hebrew slaves, no matter what. They are just slaves permanently forever. So, like, the God of the Bible is into slavery. The God of the Bible is pro-slavery. That we should all be able to square that, right? We're cool on that.
Yeah. Do you know what Jesus said about slavery or about slaves?
He
Not
didn't.
shit.
Nothing. Not a thing.
He did.
Not a lot.
He said,
No, he didn't.
your servant. He said, your servant is greater than you. The least on earth is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven.
That word is doulos, sir.
So, yeah. And also, see, Frank, even if I agreed with the interpretation you're drawing here, what would be the more moral and appropriate thing for the greatest human who ever lived to say? Would it be treat your slaves well, or don't have fucking slaves? What should Jesus have said?
I think anything that happens to somebody on earth is redeemable in paradise. So I don't think that.
Well, that's just lazy thinking.
Because you have no evidence
like,
of paradise yet. Damn.
Yeah, and that also sucks, because then you've just completely gotten rid of the entire concept of sin, the 10 commandments, any commandment. If you do anything, it doesn't matter. You can rape, murder, enslave, commit genocide. You can break any of God's commandments. You can do whatever you want because it's redeemable in paradise, right? So there is no consequence for anything now, because anything that happens on earth is redeemable in paradise. That negates the entire purpose of God's testing.
No, you can't rape and murder. I said being a slave is redeemable in paradise, because Jesus said the least on earth is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven.
Why the fuck would I want to be redeemed in paradise if I'm a slave on earth?
Your servant.
Fuck you, C. Frank. Don't do that shit.
Don't do that shit.
No, stop that.
You said being a slave is redeemable in paradise. Is owning slaves redeemable in paradise?
According to the Bible, you can own slaves and go to paradise. Yeah.
So then, what's the fucking point, man? Like, what's the point? This God, if this God is real, is clearly not a good person, right? This God has a theme park in the sky, and you get to get tickets for free, even if you own human beings as farming equipment. Why do we care about this God?
I don't know who else. Well, yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's not boding well.
The thing is, man, there's no reason to believe in this God. There's no evidence for it. There's no reason to believe it. And if it is real, if it is actually true, if this God does exist, then he's a monster. And so, like, as we just said to the last caller, I don't know if you heard it.
I wouldn't say Jesus is a monster. No way.
I would.
Jesus, so first of all, I would, because Jesus, first of all, is a continuation of God, and also all that stuff in the Old Testament about rape, murder, genocide, slavery, you name it, all the horrific, genuinely unjustifiable, unexcusable, horrific bullshit that God does in the Old Testament and lays down as law. Jesus says, I come not to change the law, but to fulfill it. Jesus says, not a jot or a tittle of the law shall change until all things come to pass in the end of the age. Jesus says that no one can truly follow me unless they hate their mother and father. Jesus says, any man who disagrees with me and does not want me to be their king, bring him before me and kill him before me. Jesus says, I come bringing not peace but a sword. Jesus is very much the same character as the God of the Old Testament. he only brings in this new law of love when it's convenient. And it's also important to point out that as nice as his whole love your enemy, love your neighbor, turn the other cheek shit is, it is only with Jesus that we also get the concept of hell. Eternal torture and fire comes on the back end of infinite unconditional love. So yeah, I would call Jesus a monster too.
I would just like to add to that love your neighbor is not the same fucking thing as love everybody. So you tell me which one is greater. Like there's no way that this guy is as quintessential good as you think he is when his definition of love could only go to a neighbor. Where's the love everybody? And then mind you, I remind people that Jesus physically assaulted people. Jesus literally praised the poor for giving their last to the temple. Like, this is the shit that Jesus did. He looked at the widow with the 2 mites and said, thank you for giving your last little bit. No, you show me the goodness in this character.
She would be laying up treasure in paradise, according to the Bible.
Paradise doesn't exist, bro. You'd have to prove that paradise exists first. Otherwise, you're just pimping a scam, bro. You're just pimping a scam. That was 2,000 years ago. We have no evidence of paradise since then. It's a 2,000-year-old lie. You know, that's just me being funny, but it is what it is.
It certainly is. It certainly is. Anyway, I would love for Frank, I would love for you to address what we just said in terms of like the character of Jesus being a continuation of the God of the entire Bible, especially if you're one of those that believes that Jesus and God are the same person in 2 persons. Like at the end of the day, the God of the Bible is a monster and Jesus is a part of that monstrous nature. Would you agree with that, or do you think that we're missing something?
I would definitely disagree with that. Why? I don't agree with that, no.
Why?
I don't agree that he's a monster, no.
Why?
I think that if I just look at the character of Jesus, he did nothing wrong.
That means you never read the book, bro. I can't take you, friend. I can't take you seriously.
Yeah. He did nothing wrong except for when he told everyone to sell everything they own and only follow him, which, if there's no heaven, is a big deal. He did nothing wrong except for when he said, render unto Caesar what's Caesar's, and played into the whole, imperialism and bullshit when he could have just continued standing up to an oppressive tyrannical empire. He did nothing wrong except for when he crafted a whip to go beat the shit out of people in a temple for misusing his holy ground the way he wanted. He fucking set a tree on fire because it didn't have enough fruit for him. He was a megalomaniacal dickhole. And at no point was he this lamb that people like to paint him as, especially considering the fact that he was, as I said, a continuation of the God of the Old Testament, as he himself said. He never claimed to be God, but he said that he was the upholding the law.
He did claim to be God, but he did have a.
Where did Jesus claim to be God?
See, Frank doesn't know anything about the Bible. What the fuck is this?
Jesus never claimed to be God.
He says, "I and the Father are one." I and the Father are one. Yeah, he says that.
He also says, "I pray that you all be one." So does that mean we're all God, Frank?
Where does he say that at?
Oh, damn. So the same book you were reading where you saw the one thing, you didn't read far enough to see the other thing? Do you see what you're doing, Frank? You're just literally randomly sparking random shit. You literally, and I'm trying not to be mean, but you literally don't know what the fuck you're talking about. And I'm saying that from 2 decades of preaching experience. And so I'm like, if you're being genuine, study the stuff that you're talking about first so that we can have a conversation that we can all engage in. Because I'm going to be honest with you, as an intellect, I am fucking offended at having this conversation with you at this moment. Because you're not even trying. You're not being honest. You're not being genuine. You don't have a true faith. You're not actually out here living in a way that you believe the Lord is real. You're just saying some shit to jerk yourself off in the room. And this shit is pathetic, man. Damn it. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to go that hard, but it is what it is. Nothing you've said has been accurate. I'm disappointed, Forrest. I'm disappointed.
It's okay.
I wanted good conversation.
It sucks, and I hope you understand. I hope you understand, C. Frank, that like the issue here is that the reason why my co-host is so upset, and the reason why I'm pretty disappointed too, is because like this is stuff that people really strongly believe, and it affects their lives and it affects other people's lives as well. And when you come into it, giving us this stuff that you're giving us here, where it's just empty, like it blows that we as atheists are taking this more seriously than you seem to. You know what I mean? See, Frank, if your phone is asleep, we can't hear you. I see you're calling in the web caller. You need to tap your phone and make sure it's awake. Otherwise, we can't hear a word you're saying.
Hello? Hey, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Hello?
So that's like just if you would respond to what we just said, like that's it sucks that we're taking this more seriously than you is where we left it off. That's where we were hoping to get a response from you.
Oh well, I thought you asked me where he claimed to be God, and I gave you a verse. And there's more verses where he says, "Before Abraham was, I am," which says that he pre-existed before Abraham. He says he's the Lord of the Sabbath. He says, "I am the Alpha and Omega, the first and the last, the beginning and the end."
Right.
All of these are claims to be God.
No,
they're
not.
So people, they're not. But like, here's the thing: biblical scholars disagree with you. Historians disagree with you. Atheists who have read the Bible, like the people who have actually read this book, disagree with you. But let's say it's true, right? Let's just entertain the notion for a minute. Let's say that he said he was God. That furthers into my point that I was making, which is that the God of the Bible is an evil motherfucker. And if Jesus claims to be the same guy, then Jesus is held equally responsible in my mind. You have painted Jesus as more of a monster if he is indeed the same thing as God. If these two are the same creature in different persons, as the whole Trinitarian belief, then he's worse than what I was painting. I was painting him as a failed apocalyptic preacher who believed in some awful shit. You are now painting him as the same dude who I think it's in Kings, I can find the chapter if you'd like, where he fucking set some kids on fire for putting the wrong incense in an incense burner and then threatened the kids' parents. He threatened the kids' parents to not grieve the loss of their children. Otherwise, he would kill them and their community too. That's what God did. And if Jesus is God, then Jesus is fucking evil.
I think he means business. I mean, that's what I take from that.
Him.
He just means business.
So fuck him. This is the God who drowned every creature on earth because he regretted making us? Fuck off.
Yikes.
If this God is real, he's evil. So it's good thing that there's no excuse there's no reason to believe he exists.
The reason he gave for the flood was because the world was filled was evil. Everybody on earth was corrupted and
the reason he gave for the flood was that the reason he gave for the flood was that he regretted making humans. But also what Darante said is very important, including the babies, the infants. Were they also evil?
I don't think they could be, but
but they
still drowned, right?
Evil.
Also, why did the gophers and giraffes have to drown as well? And why didn't the whales? How sinless are dolphins in a way that they get to be preserved, but fucking like sloths don't? Like, what's that all about,
drug
man?
Addicts, by the way. Dolphins are fucking drug addicts. I just want everybody
to know. If anything, dolphins deserve punishment more, if anything. Like, but that's neither here nor there. Like, the point is, this God, like, first of all, this God claims to be all-knowing, right? And yet somehow this all-knowing creature can experience regret. That doesn't make any logical sense. Then because he regrets making humans, he drowns every single person and every other thing that can't breathe salt water, breathe in salt water. All of them. They're all drowned because he fucked up and regrets his fuck up. That's a stupid, childish tantrum thing to do. That's not a divine wisdom. That's a child throwing a temper tantrum and drowning his bath toys. If this God is real, he is evil. It's a good thing he isn't fucking real.
Yes.
Okay, why don't you think God is real?
Great
What are you
question.
reading?
No evidence.
Because there's simply no evidence for it. There's no use for it. There's no good reason to believe in this thing. Ignorance isn't evidence. So saying we don't know where XYZ thing came from doesn't solve anything. We have to have positive evidence of this thing's existence, and we just simply don't.
Okay. What do you think created the universe?
So again, I can go on about the Big Bang and how it works, but ignorance isn't evidence. Even if I did not have an answer for that, just saying I don't know where the universe comes from doesn't mean that you get to then superimpose a magical explanation, right? You can just say I don't know.
It's not magical.
We have plenty of evidence for the Big Bang, right? We know a tremendous amount about the Big Bang. We don't know what came before the Big Bang because we don't know what that means. What does before the Big Bang even mean? That what is before time starts? That doesn't make any sense. I don't know the answer to that. I don't know if that's even a question that can be asked. But the issue here
can I ask you a question?
Yeah, you go ahead. I'll talk about something else here in a minute.
It's just a very simple question. Is why do you feel like you need to pretend to have answers that you don't actually have? Why is that important for you?
I didn't know that's what I was doing. But
I mean, well, you just asked, well, how do we explain creation? So my question to you would be, well, how do you explain creation? And not how did your preacher tell you how creation happened. My question would be, how did you discover that creation happened?
So if the universe was created,
the only answer
then everything
you could get is you don't know. Like, that's what I'm trying to help you realize right now.
Yeah.
Is the only honest answer you could give is that you don't know, because you may not be smart enough to know this yet, but we know that any answer you're going to give is going to be absolute bullshit right now. You understand that?
All right. Well,
let him give one. Let him give one. Let's see.
cook.
Let's
cook.
test the
Let's
hypothesis.
cook.
Tell us where how do you know the origin of the universe?
Well, if everything came from a primary source of creation, like the universe, everything that exists and that was ever created, including the universe and whatever else was created, if it all came from a primary source, like a singular source, like a singularity, and if that primary source was conscious, it would be God. And if you think of the properties that this primary source would have, it would have the property of being able to create everything in existence, and it would be infinite because space is infinite.
So the issue, see, Frank, is the word if. The word if did all the heavy lifting for you there.
Right.
Like,
Right.
if
Right.
the world,
So
the
if
universe
it-
came
if
from
it-
this singularity, and if something with the consciousness made it, well, how do you know it did? Maybe something with consciousness didn't make it. Maybe nothing made it. And if you do say,
it has the property.
Sorry, go ahead.
It has the property of being able to create everything in existence. So if a housefly can have the necessary traits for consciousness, I don't see why the primary source of all of creation would not have the necessary traits for consciousness. That just seems unlikely to me.
What is more abundant? What is more abundant in the universe? See, Frank, houseflies or rocks?
Rocks.
Right, rocks. And do rocks have the necessary traits for consciousness?
Well, that doesn't really. But
no. So why would you then say, well, here's this thing that seems to have some consciousness, therefore the creator of the universe must have. Clearly, if the creator of the universe made everything, he made a whole fuck of a lot more rocks than conscious things. And so, like,
we don't.
It makes a lot more sense.
We don't know what all he created. We don't know everything he created. We always see is this creation.
But we also don't know that there's a creator. See, that's the thing, man. That's what's so frustrating for us on this side of the call right now, is that, like, I can sit here and lay out the evidence for the Big Bang. I can explain the recession rate of galaxies. I can explain a little bit about cosmological redshift. I can explain a little bit about cosmic microwave background radiation. I can explain a little bit about what we know about the conditions of the early universe, stuff that I picked up from my physics education. Well, I'm not a physicist, I'm a biologist, but I have a little physics background. I can talk a little bit about it and I can explain it. But again, as I said earlier, even if I knew none of it, ignorance isn't evidence. I would be left in the exact same place where I just eventually have to say, I don't know. And I'm willing to sit here and be honest and say, I don't know. I don't know where the universe came from at the end of the day. I don't know what started this whole thing. If there is anything that started this whole thing, I don't know. And you are taking this stance where you're not only saying you know what started the universe, you're saying it's a guy. And you know the guy, and you know the guy's name, and it's this guy, and you're talking to me, and I'm sitting here saying, listen, we have these models, we have this math, we have this incredible spectroscopy, we have all this understanding, we have all this data, we know stuff about this, and we know where things came from, and there's a point where we lose understanding, and we're just going to have to try to figure it out. And you're saying, do you really think it's that, or do you think it's the fucking space wizard? Because if you ask me, I think it's this guy in space, and he doesn't want you to masturbate, and he's cool with slavery, but not sex slavery, except for when he is. And you have all this shit that you know about this guy. You know the guy's name. You know the guy wants you to eat pork or shellfish. You know whether the guy wants you to wear clothing and mix fabrics. You know what holes you're allowed to fuck because the guy said so. You know all these things about this guy who did this stuff. And meanwhile, I'm just saying, dude, I'm not 100% sure. I'm trying to figure it out. How are you cool with this massive leap of imagination to say, I don't know, therefore it's the fucking magic space guy?
I don't think God is a guy or a space wizard or I think he can manifest as a human in human form. I think Jesus was God in human form.
You are missing the point like crazy. You are missing the point like crazy.
That is solely a space wizard. What do you think?
So you are missing the point like, whoa. Yeah, where does God live? And how do you know?
I don't know where God lives, I guess.
Frank, that is the most honest answer you've given all night.
That's it. I don't know where God lives. Now, next question. Do you know that there's a God at all?
With 100% certainty, I cannot say.
With any certainty.
I do.
Because I'm a scientist. I don't know anything with 100% certainty either.
Well, I feel that the primary source of all of creation would have the necessary traits for consciousness. And I see evidence of this with
I didn't ask you what you feel. I didn't ask you what you feel. I asked you what you know. Do you know that there's a God at all? In any percentage of certainty, do you have any strong reason to believe that there is a God?
Yes, for reasons I gave, and plus the universe seems to be designed for life.
Then let me ask you this. See, Frank? So first of all, no, it's not. But second of all, let me ask you this. Who created God then? Because God seems to have some sort of consciousness. So it's clearly something with consciousness made him, right?
No, God precedes everything. He is the first. He's the initial cause.
So then if you're allowed to say that, then I'm allowed to say that the universe is completely naturalistic and it precedes everything, and it means the same nothing. Because neither of us have any evidence for the base root of that, because we don't know. And I'm willing to sit here and say, I don't fucking know. And you're not. Nope. You're not willing to say you don't know. You say, I don't know, therefore it's this guy. And I know the guy's name. And I know the guy wants slaves.
Yep.
No, I don't know with 100% certainty, but the universe does seem to be designed for life. With the fine-tuning
let me stop you there. Okay, you say the universe seems to be designed for life. Damn it, Frank, stop fucking pretending and lying, okay? You live on one planet. You live on one planet in a universe of trillions of planets, and you have no evidence of life on any other of those planets. And yet you sit here and have the fucking audacity to say the universe seems to be designed towards life. Fuck you, Frank. At this moment, you're not being serious. I have no respect for you. Like, holy fucking shit. Please hang up this phone because you are wasting my fucking time.
the fact that there's any life at all
Shit.
is kind of
No,
is kind
Frank,
of
that's
remarkable.
not how that
because-
No,
works.
it doesn't.
95% of the
No,
universe
if
we
you-
don't
if you-
even have
if you
access
think-
to. So literally 95% of what you're saying, 95% of it, you're not even aware of what you're able to speak to. So please just
Well, if you
stop
think of like, if you,
while you're ahead.
And furthermore,
Like,
you
you're
talk
literally
about
putting your ignorance up there.
and you're talking about like, well, life existing at all is this miraculous thing. No, it super isn't, because what we know so far about abiogenesis is that it is insanely natural. Like, we know where the stuff, so there's 4 major macromolecules make up life. We know the stuff that makes them and the stuff that makes that. And we know that all of those pieces not only self-assemble, but self-polymerize in naturalistic ways. We know that the stuff that makes life combines naturally, forms naturally, does the stuff that happens in life naturally. When we study life itself, it obeys all the same laws of chemistry and physics as everywhere else. There is nothing supernatural about life, and there doesn't appear to be anything supernatural about the beginning of life either. And the fact that life got started on this planet within a few, 100,000 years of the end of the Hadean, if not into the Hadean potentially, means that it is extremely easy for this to happen. And all you're doing is you're looking at this Earth as if it's this fucking special little jewel that solidifies this monster in the sky that you believe in, and it just doesn't. Man, I'd be willing to go on further with you, but it sounds like my co-host is thoroughly over you, and because you're just not being serious. So what I would encourage you to do is sorry, go ahead.
Well, if you think of what life is literally matter becoming self-aware of its own existence. That just doesn't happen by random chance. You can't.
That's not true.
Yeah,
that's not true. Some life does that. Some life does that. Not all life does that. Again, you are putting this very anthropocentric, not anthropocentric, probably. You are putting this very anthropocentric view. No, it does not. It absolutely does not. Trust me, I study this shit for a living. It doesn't. And every attempt to try to pin it to that has failed miserably. So, no, dude, it does not. And you are taking this very human-focused, human-centric approach to this and trying to feel special in a universe where you're simply not. It's not necessary, it's not relevant, and it's not appropriate in a serious scientific discussion. I encourage you to actually look into what we know about this stuff. Check out NASA's Astrobiology Primer. They just released the 3rd edition. It is the most cited and most robust just glossary, this resource on everything we know so far about where stars come from, where planets come from, where life comes from, and how life evolves. It is an easy read if you're willing to put in the hard work of doing so. It's not an easy read, is what I'm saying, but it's not very difficult. You can get through it, and you can do a lot. You learn a lot, and it's not fucking magic. I just encourage you to actually really try to dig into this. My co-host is done with you, but I would be willing to talk to you again. So if you want to call in sometime when I'm on, I'm hosting tomorrow and I'm hosting next week as well on Sunday. I'd be happy to talk to you about the science of it, but I think we're going to move on to our final calls for today, Steve Frank.
All right, thanks.
Yay. I appreciate you.
Yeah, you literally said, please hang up the phone. And I'm like, okay, I'm not going to take this much farther. I would have sat here all night and just been like, that's not what anything is. Absolutely not.
Oh, man. Oh, my blood pressure is not doing well with this one.
We've got 4 calls left, and we're gonna have to go quickly through them because it's already 9:30 my time. I don't know about where you are.
That's about right.
Yeah, it's late, and we've been going for a while, but we're gonna start. Ooh, goodness, I'm real burpish. I'm over here chugging soda, trying to keep alive. Yes. We're gonna start with Jenny, who has been on the line for fucking 2.5 hours. My goodness. Who is recently deconstructed and wants to know how to stay level-headed when talking to her family. Jenny, you were on the line with Forrest and Darante. How are you doing?
Hi, how's it going?
Hey, Jenny.
Going really well.
That's good. I wanted to start off thanking you, Forrest, because you're a huge part of the reason why I deconstructed. Well, I was already kind of talking with it, but you were a huge help for that. The way that you are able to explain evolution and just make it really fun for someone who really struggled with that subject in high school, especially because I didn't really believe it.
Well, that's very, very sweet of you.
Thank you. I am kind of struggling because it's hard, like, with my mom especially, because I love her and she's really sweet. But she is, I grew up Jehovah's Witness, so it's kind of, it's been hard, like, deconstructing, because, it's one of those religions that is very, hard to leave without it being a huge problem.
Yeah.
It's gotten a lot better over the years because they've had multiple governments sue them and take away their tax cuts. So it has gotten better. Like, she's allowed to talk to me, and in the 90s, she wouldn't have been able to. But it's still, I don't know, it's hard because I'm trans. She doesn't know that. I don't know if I should tell her or not, but it's just hard to have, because, I mean, I'm sorry, my brain's all over the place.
No, I get it. Yeah,
You're fine.
sure.
It's, when I first was deconstructing and everything, I was so mad. I had that, the angry atheist thing they're always talking about. And it didn't, I said a lot of things that I later regretted, but we've made our peace since then. And finally, recently, when I got into the whole thing about slavery that you guys were just talking about with my mom, I finally, because I just kind of snapped with that, is to, I was talking about how much better I feel not being a witness anymore and living my life and being happy.
Yeah.
And she said, I just don't see how you're happier. And she says that, and she doesn't say it anymore because I asked her not to. She is pretty good with boundaries. But in that moment, I just got so frustrated. And I
don't see,
for
someone to say, I don't see how you're happier, that's not their problem.
Nope.
Seriously.
Yeah, exactly.
I have so many calls on this show. Like, I think I even mentioned today, one of the callers was like, how do you say you never have a bad day? It's because there's this expression, I'm a nihilist and I'm a ancient stoic. And I have people call me all the time. Yeah, people call me all the time and they're like, how the fuck are you happy? What's going on? I was like, it doesn't have to work for you. It's just not your life. You're not in my brain and you should be happy about that. But it's like, just for so many reasons, don't fucking worry about it. It works for you. It doesn't need to work for her. And like everything I'm hearing you say here, like just the advice that I give every caller who calls in with the same things you are saying right now, which is a lot of them. And I'm not saying that to make you feel bad. I'm saying that so you're not alone. Is that you need to make the decision. You need to do the calculus in your head of how much is this relationship worth to me? And how much is this conversation worth to me? And how much of this conversation am I willing to give up for this relationship, and vice versa? How much of this relationship I'm willing to lose for this conversation? And where's the middle ground that I'm willing to meet at to where I am still being treated like a human and I'm not sacrificing my own self-worth and dignity, and I'm not letting somebody walk over me and treat me like shit for their comfort. I'm setting a healthy boundary that's good for me, and I'm not being demanding on them, forcing them to change everything. I'm preserving as much of the relationship as I can. Those are the kind of things that you need to sit down and do those calculations on. Because if it's some random fucking guy and they're treating you like trash, then you can decide, you know what, at the end of the day, my self-worth is more important than this relationship as a whole. So either this person changes how they treat me or they are no longer part of my life. If it's a family member, you may not be willing to go that far. You need to sit down and decide that for yourself. Yeah, you need to sit down and decide that for yourself and decide, how much am I going to let this person hurt me? And how much am I going to let this person dehumanize me? And how much am I going to give up for their comfort? And those things might not all be necessarily connected. You could set a limit where you're saying, hey, listen, you are going to refer to me this way. This is very important to me. I love you enough to continue being in this relationship with you, continue being, connected to you and maintaining our connection and our relation. I am willing to do that because I love you. Even though I know you are so diametrically opposed to me and believe so differently than me, I need you to love me enough to give me the compassion and respect that I'm asking for here, even if you don't understand it, even if you don't agree with it. This is who I am, and you need to respect that. Otherwise, I need to rethink how we're going to continue interacting with each other. And neither of us want to deal with that shit. It is so much easier for you just to be cool with me, and I'm going to try to be cool with you. And if that conversation doesn't work, then you need to decide if you're going to be in a relationship with this person, they're going to treat you this way, how much are you going to let that hurt you? Is there a point where you can't help it? And is that worth you then cutting that person off? This is all the calculus you have to do, Jenny.
Yeah, that's the really good way to put it, and I wrote it down in my notes. I've never really thought those questions through.
That it's not a fun one to think through. So
It's not.
I'm not surprised. Yeah. Yeah.
And
I also encourage you strongly. Sorry, go ahead, Darante.
No, you're good. Please finish that thought, because I feel
I
like
was just
going to
say I was just saying I strongly encourage you to reach out to Recovering from Religion as well.
Yep.
And just because they have actual counselors that deal with this shit all the time, and they're probably going to give you better advice than I can.
And I do just want to add, and this is a thing for anybody who's ever struggled with anything like this, and this it hits so many different assets or facets of who we are, but you don't owe anybody your identity. Your identity is yours. You know what I'm saying? And so your identity is your experience, not their expectation. And we only get a healthier world when we're honest with our lived experiences. From a sociological perspective, I think much of the harm that has been done in the world is because we have people living experiences that they're not able to be honest about. And we need that honesty. We need your honesty about what your lived experience in this world looks like in order for us to do better as a species.
Love that.
I definitely agree with that. I lived so many lies my whole life, and I think that's the thing that made me the most angry is I felt like that was wasted time. But someone reminded me that it doesn't have to be, because every experience that we have changes us in some way, and we can learn from that, and it's still beneficial. And it's kind of like Forrest always says about not having a bad day. I love that. When I first heard you say it, I'm not going to lie, I thought you were overly optimistic. And I thought, well, that's a load of crap. But then when you explained it, I was like,
in a way I am. I'm a very quixotic guy. But yeah, I think we should be. I think you're worth it to put in this hard work. And it is hard work, Jenny. It is hard work. But I think you are worth it. And you deserve it. And if anybody, my take on it, which is not going to be compatible with you probably, is that the people who mind don't matter, and the people who matter don't mind. They need to be, they need to be in line with you and be able to respect you as you need to be able to respect them. You can't expect everybody to conform 100% to your way of living, but you can expect them and should expect them to respect your way of living, respect your identity, respect your existence. And if they can't do that, they need to get the fuck out of your way. That may not be what works for you, and that's okay. You got to draw that line for yourself and figure out what works best for you.
It works for me.
Not all of us are fortunate enough. Dude, I've cut people out of my life before. I've cut family members out of my life before, and it sucks. And you grieve someone that's still alive, and it's painful and it sucks, but it is worth it because you get to live more authentically. And you get to be happier and truer to yourself. And you get to live that pure, real you that is fucking just worth every bit of pain that goes into forging it. Because you are the marble and the sculptor, Jenny. So there is no change there without pain. You got to make it happen for you.
Oh, man.
Makes sense.
Anyway, with that, Jenny, I appreciate you waiting for so long. I hope this was helpful to you. Please call back and keep us updated on your journey, okay?
It absolutely was.
Thank you, Jenny.
I will definitely keep you guys updated. Thank you so much.
Sweet. Bye-bye. She seemed cool.
For sure.
We've got, coming up next, Jonathan wants to know, what's the best strategy for picking your battles when it comes to religious arguments? This is definitely up your alley quite a bit. Jonathan, you're on the line with Forrest and Darante, two people who are notoriously very bad at picking our battles when it comes to religious arguments. How are you today?
Oh, man.
Jonathan, can you hear us? Jonathan, are you there?
Uh-oh.
Oh, son of a bitch. I'm here. I'm good. I'm here. Fuck.
Hey, all right.
There we go.
I am using a gaming headset. I know you guys generally recommend against headsets. Do I sound fine? First off, am I good?
You sound just
You sound
fine.
great, man.
Okay, perfect. I have two mute buttons, and I forgot to undo one of them. My bad.
Nice. Nice.
But yeah, I would strongly disagree with you, first of all, because I specifically chose you for this shit, Forrest. Darante, I am not familiar with you, but you seem fucking amazing. And when the call screener told me your background, I figured, oh my god, this is fucking perfect. It's meant to be. Maybe not from God's hand, but whatever the fuck is out there doing this shit, I'm here for it. It's working, apparently.
It's Jimmy Snow who runs the channel.
It is. It's
oh,
Jimmy.
yeah, that reminds me.
Yeah,
I got a couple bullet points.
What would Jimmy do?
What would Jimmy do? I don't know, fuck a dude.
You know, that's a good question. If I ever get to talk to Jimmy, I'll ask him.
Yeah.
Okay, so
what's
to my question.
What's your question? Yeah.
So I want to know what, as far as, you know, the not professional debaters, but to put it in your words, Forrest, you argue with people for a living, and so you guys, I feel, have gotten pretty good at voicing your opinions and thoughts in a concise enough way to be able to speak to someone you disagree with on a more comfortable level, and I am very, very, very strongly in my angry atheist phase. I used to be a Christian and went to a youth group until I found out a couple indiscrepancies with what my pastor was saying compared to what the Bible actually said, and from there I started learning more and more about Christianity, and I ended up leaving, because if you're going to tell kids to dedicate their lives to their fucking dying breath, you better be teaching them something worth it. And after reading the fucking book for myself, I feel I learned everything I needed to know that I was wasting my fucking time. And so ever since then, I've had a real, like, emotional attachment to this vendetta that, of course, I don't want to take too far. I'm very much trying to err on the side of skepticism, but I would be lying if I said my emotions didn't get involved. And not super recently, but semi-recently, there was an incident in which somebody was saying that trans people are all deranged and belong in an asylum, and I got in a fucking fight with them at work because I don't stand for that shit. And I know that comes from this particular person's religious thinking. I am also surrounded by Trump supporters for family members, and I am in the show me state, which I don't know where it is Bible Belt-wise, but I know that I have more fucking churches around me than any area that will help me and my girlfriend with her medical needs. So that's my situation.
Wow.
I wanted to, you know, get your thoughts on, like, what I can do in that scenario, basically arguing with forced ignorance, chosen ignorance, because that's something I'm not good at. I am very, here's the facts, here's the reason, why the fuck aren't you accepting this? It's the reason, it makes sense, I connected the dots for you, motherfucker, just take it.
So first of all, I want to say, Jamie the Blind Limey is in chat, and you asked, you know, what do I do with all this? And he put in, have a wank. I don't know. That's what I do. Go to bed, Jamie.
I did that for a long time. It doesn't really work for me anymore, and I don't think my girlfriend would appreciate me rage wanking too much.
It works for me, goddammit. It works for me.
But that's, honestly, I would say the biggest thing is, like, you know, the thing that helps me out a lot, and this sounds condescending as fuck. Then you just
Not
have to
you,
ignore that. Well, it fucking does. So just for anybody who's religious is listening to this, just please understand, I know how this is going to sound to you. Please just hear me out. Is that
I see my mistake.
Is that especially, like, especially when we're talking about Christianity, where we grew up, you know, this is a religion that is centered around abuse. You are teaching children that they are doomed to go to hell and burn for all eternity because they deserve it, because of just the nature of how they are born. You are abusing kids by teaching them a horrible morality that is in a book that, as we've covered in this show, justifies and makes excuses for and even commands some of the biggest, worst atrocities of human history. And they're telling you that this is love and this is good, and they tell you Jesus loves you, which is only half of the sentence
and Leviticus.
Right. Well, the whole sentence, Jesus loves you, is Jesus loves you so much he'll set you on fire in the basement if you don't love him back, which is not a loving God. That's a fucking stalker. And like they give you this perversion of love and compassion and kindness and grace, and then they tell you to apologize for your very human nature. And when people are abused in such a way and taught that abuse is love, they then pass that abuse on to their children, thinking they're doing the right thing. So when you approach these people that are so far gone into the sauce of this religion, I would encourage you to, if you want to remain compassionate, to remain compassionate, to remember that they are not bad people because of what they believe. What they believe is making them bad people. How should I say that better? They are not bad people, so they believe these things. They believe these things, which makes them do bad things and act like bad people. That's a better way to say it. When someone is a good religious person, they are not good because of their religion. They're good in spite of it. And when you talk to a lot of people about how this religion makes them behave, and they're like, well, I need this religion for this morality. I derive my morality from the Bible. First of all, no, you don't, because you're not in fucking prison. But second of all, that doesn't make you a good person. That makes you a bad person on a leash, and they don't see it that way. They see it as a guiding light. So you need to try to empathize with their plight as somebody who is trapped in this, and try to find humanity outside of that religion. That's what I find is most useful.
Yep.
If I might, I think I need to put a little bit of clarification on something. I'm very familiar with the religious mindset, obviously. I know that it's not like, I know they're not all bad people because they are religious. I have had religious friends because leaving the church doesn't come easily. It's more so the fact that I've been listening to you for years, Forrest. Like I said, I'm a huge fucking fan of you. I'm so borderline fucking starstruck myself. Hey, you may be a fucking dumbass, but you are an awesome dumbass to me, and so I like listening to you.
You're my favorite dumbass, Forrest.
Hell yeah,
my business card.
But I more so have an issue with the people that I can't help individually spreading that ignorance to others at a far greater pace than I could ever combat in my area. And that's very hard for me to come to terms with emotionally, because I used to be one of those kids that sat there at the altar crying, giving myself to Jesus. And then I see these people passing out fucking pamphlets at my local Walmart saying that you need Jesus because you have blue hair and shit. And I'm like, how the fuck can you bring yourself to judge someone so heavily outside of your belief system and spread that ignorance onto others and talk about, like, you know, oh, well, they just be careful when you go to school. They might try to teach you came from a fish. And it's like, I'm sorry, Grandma, what the fuck did you just tell me? Like, I see it happening all around me to my friends and to my family, and it drives me nuts. And I want to know if there's a way I can help the people that haven't quite been reached yet.
This weekend, I was in Denver giving a speech, and I ended up going out to dinner with a bunch of friends who were formerly religious, and they had a good long talk. We all just sat around the table, and they all talked about how fucking horrible people they used to be, and the people they used to out as gay, and the people they used to abuse in their lives, telling them they're going to hell, the people that they used to shame, and all these things, and how horrible they feel about it, and how like, for lack of a better word, blessed, how fortunate they feel that they have that shame that tells them they recognize what's wrong, and that they're now able to do better. How they're trying to move past it and let go of it, but at least that is a sign of change and growth in them, and those growing pains. And so, like, for that, I would just say, you know, don't give up hope on these people. And same thing as I did the last caller, you need to lay down the lines in your own head. Like, what is worth it to you? Are these relationships worth it? And how much are these relationships worth? And how much are these conversations worth? How much of this relationship are you willing to sacrifice?
I'm not good at that, because everybody is worth it to me. That's my fucking issue. Everyone is fucking
worth it, because you're not going to be happy without it.
Matters. Yes.
I put other people's happiness before my own because I see everyone else as having more potential than me. And if I can use my potential to expound upon their potential, then I have exponentially increased my own value by proxy through theirs.
Okay. Well,
I know it's not healthy. It's something I've been working through. I don't have a therapist, but
we need to unpack. Like, right? That's a whole nother other conversation. Because I don't need you to do that. That's not healthy for you. Honestly, the healthiest way we can view the world is I do this for you because I would want this for me. Not I do this for you because I do this for you if I couldn't do it for me. Like, that's the healthiest way we can view this world. Like, and I often tell people my journey to humanism was through Black nationalism, which means there was a place in my life where the most important thing to me was how well Black people were doing, regardless of where they were on this planet. I was a Black nationalist, I was a Pan-Africanist, and then I became a humanist because I had to wrestle with what I want for every little Black child on this planet, I'd want for every child on this planet, period, you know? And so that gets you to a place of, like, I don't even know a word for it, and maybe Forrest as academia can give me a word, but it's an all-inclusive love. It's a love that doesn't need to denigrate me to appreciate you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's that type of sense. And and that's the only reason I wanted to hit that, because I don't want any of us getting there. That's that religious, superstitious baggage that I have to kill me to help you. That is not necessary. And just using the language of every plane I've ever fucking been on. If this plane starts going down, put your own fucking oxygen mask on first, because that's the only way you could really ever be of help to me, Jonathan, is if you are truly making sure that you love yourself and that you value yourself. Because honestly, brother, it's your value that brings value to my life. If you devalue yourself, you're devaluing the value that you could bring to my life. And so that's just not something I need. I need you to see yourself just as equal as everybody that you care about. Otherwise, we put ourselves right back into that same slippery slope that we've already been in.
Yeah, I've got a bit of from the way past baggage that contributes to that. So you're not wrong. Say, it's not nearly as bad as I make it sound. I'm a very dramatic worder.
No, it's fine. The way you talked about that, it sounded like it came from a place of the exact same religious trauma that you are freeing yourself from this moment. This is a heuristic, a mental pathway, a mental shortcut that you are used to using. I use the word heuristic a lot, and I want people to look that word up. It's a shortcut. It's a mental pathway that you train your mind to do this thing, and you don't notice you do it. You don't notice you do it, and you don't notice how they limit you sometimes. And when you can recognize them and try stepping outside of them, that's where outside the box thinking comes from. And it's not just good for corporate synergy meetings. It's good for getting your fucking life in order.
Yes.
That's the point I'm really stuck at, because I've acknowledged it and noticed it. It's just I fucking suck at breaking habits that I've gotten so good at using, like skill sets and shit. Yep. And this goes in the category of skill sets, and that's where I'm having the biggest hang up, because I have such a strong desire to help people while I am in the fourth quarter of helping myself as far as coming to terms with the shit that I've done in the past and coming to terms with my religious past. I'm in that fourth quarter of I've gotten through most of it, but I just need to let go of this last little bit. But fucking hell, there's so many people right there. Okay, my shit can wait a minute. I just started right there. I got the people. I got the target spotted. Hey, I see you talking about Jesus Christ over there. You know, I'm not door-to-door Mormon shit, but like you get what
you're preaching. You are preaching to the choir. Like, there was a time in my life when I want to do the same thing, and that's why the outreach shows like this are so important. But it's very, very important that, like, you notice the model here is we don't call out. We don't call it. We want them to call us. That's why we're always begging for calls. That's why you'll notice on my social media whenever. And that's that. But that's the point, is that, like, we don't want to be that way. And so, like, if it were, if I could get a bigger platform and I could try to tell more people about the beauty of reality, I'd be absolutely doing it. But no way in fuck I'm going to do it the way they do it, because it's the same way. We talk about, we joke sometimes about, you brought up, trans people and whatnot. on a show I was on recently, somebody was saying something about how we should, start because of Trump's stupid executive order. We should start calling him a her and all these things. Like, no, misgendering is the weapon of the enemy. We will not use it. And similarly, this door to door, that is the weapon of the enemy. We don't do this shit. We're not, So I think you're on the right path, Jonathan. I think you're going through the same normal human motions as people who deconstruct from this stuff, and you got a long way to go, but you're cognizant of that, and that's very important. And so I encourage you as well. Call Recovering from Religion, talk to their therapist, talk to their people, and see if you can get some help there if you need it. Talk to people in your life, and maybe even start the conversation being honest with them and saying, listen, I don't fucking know what I want the end result of this to be, but I know I'm not comfortable where I'm at, and I care about you enough to try to bring you along on this journey with me. And if you don't want to be on it, that's up to you. But I'm changing, and I'm giving you the opportunity to change with me. And that's a thing that I would do to somebody that I love. So with that, Jonathan, we're going to move on to our last couple of callers, but I hope we answered your questions a little bit. All right.
Okay. You got to a couple of things that I was wanting to touch on as well with recovering from religion. I didn't know if that would be a good spot for me to go, but you cleared that up beautifully. And I do want to say one more thing just before you cut me off. Get me the fuck out of here. I'll stop eating up all your goddamn oxygen time. Airtime, it's a pun.
It would have been very funny for me to hang up at that moment, but I'm not going to do it. Go ahead. What are you saying?
I was scared. That's why I started talking fast, because I know that happens.
Right.
But the last thing I wanted to touch on before I dip out, first of all, I'm really grateful for the time. But I also wanted to say I make some content, not going to link, of course, or not saying I'm not here to promote, but I make some content of my own, and I actually used your Sex and Sensibility video for some of my how I found meaning in life content, and then you fucking took it down, you son of a bitch.
Yeah, I've got a new one. It's happening.
I know.
I can
I'm
show.
Excited, but
let me just really quickly hold on a second. Let me share my screen just for a second. This is my display capture. That's the wrong one. This is my display capture. Nope. This is my display capture. There it goes. This is where I'm at right now, as I'm doing this whole thing about hormones. And look at this timeline, y'all. Look, this is the part that I'm working through. This part's edited. This part's edited. This is the part that I'm working on right now. And I'm doing this whole thing about hormones at this moment. So that the whole video, it's an hour and 43 minutes at this moment. I'm chunking through. That's 3 times longer than the original one. So it's going to be great. Just fucking calm your tits.
I get to listen to your goofy ass for that long? Let's fucking go.
Nobody needs that. Don't fucking hype it. Anyway, Jonathan,
dude, I'm hyping
I hope you have an awesome rest
therapy, dude.
You as well.
Everyone is awesome. Also, Jenny, you're doing fucking amazing.
Right, Jonathan, take care of your life, man. We'll see you soonly.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Oh, shit.
We've got 2 calls left. Fucking just a wild ride, y'all. Oh, by the way, Calasia789 is lying to all of you in the chat. She said that you should tune in tomorrow for Skeptalk with me and Dr. Roxanne again. Roxanne actually had to swap. She's going to be on the 22nd with a Cus I Wanna. Why I say it so weird? Cus I Wanna. Tomorrow is going to be me and Austin Archer. So tune into that. Ooh. Me and Austin are going to be doing Skeptalk tomorrow. He's a lot of fun. And then Dr. Roxanne and I are going to be on Cus I Wanna later on. And both for the same reason. We're going to talk about how upset we are about the world, mainly America at this moment. Austin has a lot to say about protest votes, and Roxanne has a lot to say about the fact that we're no longer allowed to study women, apparently. So, that's fun. So tune in for both of those, or don't. I'm not a cop. Let's do these last couple. We've got one about evolution here. We've got Troy, who says that mini or microevolution shows that the process does not have a fixed time scale. What does that mean? Troy, you've been waiting for almost 2 hours. How are you today?
Hey, I'm doing great. And I just want to say, I wondered where that video went. And I looked everywhere for that video about trans issues and stuff, and you're one of the few people who actually talk about gamete size, which I'm particularly interested in, because I don't know if that reverses in any species, because if it does, I think there's implications for that, because there's only so many ways you can define stuff. Anyway, that is not
It
what I
does.
called. But
It does.
I,
There are some species that are sequential hermaphrodism, otherwise known as serial hermaphrodism, is when you start off as one sex and you change to another sex for a variety of reasons.
Mhm.
If you start off male and become female later, that's called protandry. If you start off female and become male later, it's called protogyny. There are also some species that are bidirectionally hermaphroditic, which means they can switch back and forth. And there are some that are truly hermaphroditic, which means they make both gametes at the same time. And all of that only applies to anisogamous species, which means they have more than one gamete size in the first place. Isogamous species have only one size of gamete. And then there's also some anisogamous species that have more than two sizes of gametes anyway. And don't fucking get me started on mushrooms. It's a whole thing.
No. Well,
watch the video when it comes out, motherfucker. You're going to like it.
So I cannot wait. I can't wait. Even if it's long, I'll sit through it. Because I was trying to figure out how the government was actually going to, define male and female, or how they were going to go about. It's kind of interesting how they came out with it. Well, yeah, it's terrible. They didn't bother asking biologists about that whole subject. Anyway, has nothing to do with the reason I'm calling. So, and by the way, hi, Darante. I talked to you this morning because I was on your show. Anyway,
yes,
I just want to say that this is Troy. By the way, I have done probably about 3,000 circumcisions in my life. I'm actually a pediatrician. And so if you guys ever want to do a deep dive into circumcision, I am there, man. I'm the circumcision king in Portland, Oregon. So anyway,
I've dived deep enough. I've been there. I've been under that knife, Troy. I've been under that knife.
The weirdest title I've ever heard. The circumcision king of Portland.
I mean, I wear that. I wear that mantle with pride. So
put that on a billboard. What a horrible everything. Whatever. It's fine. We'll get into that later or never.
Let me tell you the original reason I called. So, like you, Forrest, I am very passionate about science education, and
yes.
I've heard you say this before, and I've realized some difficulty talking to theists about evolution. And just for the record, because I don't even know if most people realize this, I mean, the reason they have such a passionate emotional response to evolution is because if it's true, or if it could be proven to be true, which it is and it can be, then that would kind of put a damper on the creation story of their religion. So it kind of sits in direct opposition. Not everybody realizes that, but that's why they kind of harp on evolution. And here's where it gets interesting, because I've heard you, Forrest, say, look, they finally had to, I suppose, admit to microevolution, and they make that's not even a distinction that a biologist would recognize, but they kind of made an arbitrary, it was whatever. So that we've never seen macroevolution, and if you don't really understand what you're talking about, it's hard to even comprehend what they would mean by that. But if you're saying microevolution, and you're saying adaptation, you're talking about species adapting, that might be just like a morphologic change within one single lifetime or one single span, not like passing it along generations. But for the most part, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but do they sometimes mean like 2 or 3 or 4 generations where you're kind of getting a little bit of evolution where they say, hey, it's still a frog when it comes out, or it's still a fox when it comes out. It hasn't changed the species. Is that what they usually mean?
So 2 things. Number 1 is that we absolutely do draw a line for microevolution. In my professional career, as just my whole academic career, I have heard the distinction between microevolution and macroevolution sincerely used in a science classroom 3 times. And because there is a distinction, it's just not that big of a fucking deal when you're talking about the whole thing.
Wow.
And also, I've yet to hear a creationist really use it appropriately. Excuse me, I had to cough. As far as adaptation goes, adaptation is a weird word that's really tricky. And here's why. There is acclimatization, which is small, short-term, reversible physiological changes to sudden changes in environment in order to maintain homeostasis. That's acclimatization. Acclimatization is when you go for a run and your heartbeat speeds up and your blood vessels dilate and you sweat, and like acclimatization is when you move up to the mountains and you get some more, you grow more red blood cells, you start producing more red blood cells. Yeah. That's all acclimatization. You're a pediatrician. Your entire RAAS system, that entire thing is acclimatization. That's what that's all about. And so the adaptation is a lot, and then there's evolution, which is a change in heritable characteristics within a population over the course of multiple generations. Adaptation is this fucking weird bridge where they're non-reversible things. Sometimes it's used colloquially to mean that, but adaptation can either describe the process of developing a characteristic through evolutionary change, or it can describe a trait itself. So like polar bears developing black skin in order to absorb extra light and stay warm in the polar region, in the Arctic region. Polar bears' black skin is an adaptation. Them developing it is adaptation. Adaptation is to evolution what angular momentum is to driving a car. And so like it's just this fuzzy word. And when creationists use it, they try to separate adaptation from evolution and say adaptation is the same thing as microevolution, or is the same thing as major changes, morphological changes within one species or one kind, whatever the fuck a kind means. And they're using this to just like squish all of these terms together in order to avoid the definition of evolution being any change in the heritable characteristics of a population over the course of multiple generations, which is what they are describing. It also allows them to try to squeeze around the idea of new genes or new information coming through mutation, which again is undeniable, but they can get around it by just calling it adaptation or calling mutations destructive, which is fucking stupid. So that's long and short of it.
The thing is, they're so close. In fact, I've heard you say like they often describe evolution and then just say evolution doesn't exist, but they're like saying what it does. So I feel like it's if you think about genotype and phenotype, I kind of define it as changes in allele frequency over time, which is kind of the same thing. It translates into
that works.
Heritable
that works if you're talking about if you're talking specifically just about neo-Darwinian evolution, which most people are. That's a fine thing to say. Yeah.
So if you could say, let's say hypothetically that a creationist was making up these arbitrary names, microevolution, macroevolution, could you go further and say mini microevolution or mega macroevolution, and then say, hey, look, we do plasma electrophoresis. We do plasma electrophoresis in the lab, because they always say, well, we can't, observe. No one's observed evolution. Well, hell yeah, if you use the definition of the changes of like, a plasmid, gets conferred antibiotic resistance, and a plasma electrophoresis in your lab, you can do it in a few hours. You can watch that mini microevolution. I mean, so you probably heard the walking, 10 steps analogy to walking a mile analogy, because the only thing that's really changing is time, right? I mean, it's all evolution. It's just a matter of how much time it's the definition includes time, but it doesn't necessarily say how much time. So anyway,
that's why the definition is always. The definition is always across multiple generations. So there's a time scale there. It is temporal, but it's not definitive in any way. And yeah, you're right. There's different ways in which that can happen. So like if you're talking just on the mutation selection mechanism, that's going to take a little bit longer than if you're talking about bacterial transformation, where you can literally just slurp up plasmids. So like it's a very different animal. And like, to answer your question, you can try to differentiate this further and further. I don't find that it's useful. I find that it's more useful to try to settle on the definition of what it actually is, and then show how this actually is something that's observed, and then draw the analogy, like you said, about walking 5 feet versus walking a mile, of like, if we can say for sure, not only do these mechanisms of evolution make sense logically, but they are also observed both in laboratory and field settings, which they are, then we can just say, okay, given a little bit more time, these all happen a lot. And especially when you throw in, you're talking about allele frequencies. I made sure to point out that that's only for neo-Darwinian evolution. If you throw in other mechanisms of evolution, if you throw in evo-devo, if you throw in like big grand scale concepts of evolution where the neo-Darwinian model simply isn't adequate, then very suddenly the whole massive amounts of time thing isn't nearly as freaky as we thought it was, and it isn't like this boogeyman that creationists pretend like it is, or this just so story where creationists say like, oh, you can just say anything happened because there's plenty of time. No, actually, if you know these other mechanisms, you don't even need that much fucking time. So that's how I would say it.
I love that.
I've never seen a fish give birth to a bird.
Right. Well, fucking, let me help you.
But it's funny though, because like, and this is, I get this is going to be somewhat pedantic, but when we think of conception itself, the process from conception to birth, it is not 100% mirroring our evolutionary lineage. But in very many of the ways, at least many of the things that creationists claim about evolution, as far as one kind not changing to another kind, we can very clearly see some of those stages in that birth to conception stage. Again, it's not mimetic. It's not a mirror. It's not linear. Linear for sure. But to me, it seems to be enough evidence to stump at least the majority of believers in this sense, as in the sense that like we don't give birth to a full human being, or we don't conceive a full human being. This is something that has to go through stages, and those stages are absolutely educational to us about our own process. And again, I will just state, just to be clear, that I do understand that that's not a linear situation, nor is it 100% mimetic of our evolutionary stages.
And what's really cool about that, because you brought it up, you son of a bitch, is that so back in the day, there was this concept, there's this thing called Meckel's law, which was exactly that. It was this idea that we, as we developed in the womb, we were literally an adult worm, and then an adult fish, and then an adult lizard, and then an adult monkey, and then and then you had Ernst Haeckel came along and did embryology, and he came up with this, what he called the biogenic law, which was that ontogeny recapitulates phylogeny, that it's sort of like that, but we follow this linear path where it's not quite exactly that we're literally an adult everything, but we take on these morphological characteristics, and that these embryos all look exactly the same until they suddenly diverge. And we had this funnel model of embryological development. Yeah, so we had this funnel model of embryological development where everything starts out super similar and then slowly diverges from there. We have since learned, since that time, that it's actually quite a bit different. And instead of having a funnel model, we have an hourglass model, where we have things start out very different, and then they get really similar, and then they diverge again from there. And that similar part, the center of the hourglass, is what's called a phylotypic stage. And it's really fucking cool, because what phylotype is, it is the one point of where all embryos look the most similar within one phylum. That's a really important part the creationists like to forget about, is that like everything within the phylum Chordata, all the chordates are going to look the most similar at this phylotypic stage. And what's really cool is that the phylotypic stage is undeniably a thing superficially looking at the embryos, 100%. If you're a molecular biologist or a geneticist or an evolutionary developmental biologist or a paleontologist, it doesn't mean fucking anything. It just looks like it, but it doesn't mean anything. And when I was in my grad school Evo-Devo class, we actually had my textbook taught that the phylotypic stage was a very serious thing. My professor said it was not. And we spent a week reading papers arguing in both directions, because that's the point of fucking science. And so like,
I love
what Darante was talking about, there is this really cool point where we see these things and we can learn a lot about evolutionary history from it, from individual organisms. Creationists will try to spin that and take us all the way back to Meckel's law and say, well, because you see these similarities, you think that proves proves evolution. No, bitch, it doesn't prove common ancestry that way. It proves evolution of the individual organism. That's why fucking baleen whales grow teeth in utero and then reabsorb them. That's why you grow a tail in utero and reabsorb it. That's why all this shit happens, because that is part of your evolutionary history. It's your phylotype, motherfucker. It's not that it's so fucking cool. It's so much cooler than people give it credit for.
I'm writing that one down.
So tight.
I am writing that one down. Oh my god, that's awesome.
It's so tight.
You guys know I very
anyway,
much appreciate the conversation. This is some good stuff. I do have one
if
more.
you want to learn more about
question.
that, check out Understanding Evo Devo by Wallace Arthur. It tells you all about the phylotypic stage and why it's real. And then you can look up some stuff about why it isn't too. But yeah, they've got in chapter, I was actually looking at this earlier, in chapter 2, Antecedents of Evo Devo, they have this whole section in here where they're talking about like phylotypes and stuff. They're talking about Ernst Haeckel, and they talk about from Haeckel to homeobox. Homeobox is a type of genes. It's these special developmental genes that like basically tell your body what shit goes where and what it's doing. And everybody has these homeobox genes, and there's this subset of homeobox genes called Hox genes, which are specifically like, this is leg, this is arm, this is where face goes. And like, and that is even cooler because you know homology, homological structures or homologous structures are like, for example, I've got one big humerus bone, and then I've got two bones here, radius and ulna, and I've got a bunch of carpal bones here, and I've got a bunch of long phalange and metacarpal bones here. One bone, two bones, little bones, long bones. That system is the same in all tetrapods because we share a common ancestor that had that system. So that's a homology that we can see. When we look at Hox genes, you, me, and fucking fruit flies share the same Hox genes that are doing largely the same things. That's when we have what's called a deep homology. A deep homology is where you share a homological trait, but it's not even a fucking physical trait. It's a genetic trait. It's a gene pathway, what we call a kernel, that's doing different things. A kernel is like the whole genetic pathway plus all of the morphogens that make a thing. We're not getting into it. We don't have all day. But like that's a deep homology. It's not even just a physical trait you can see. It's the fucking coding that is shared across taxa in ways you would never expect. It is tight as fuck.
Well, I mean, and that sounds like the most recent possible. I mean, that kind of research probably wasn't around, even 20 or 30 years ago. Or if it was,
it wasn't.
I never learned about it. I mean, that has to be like cutting edge stuff. But it continues to prove the same theory over and over again. There's no room for anyway. Well, you know how I feel about that, Forrest. One more quick question. Yep. What was that NASA glossary you said you recommended? It was available online. It was free or something, but it had a little tutorial.
The Astrobiology Primer. Yes, the Astrobiology Primer. If you look it up, if you just look up Astrobiology Primer, astrobiology.nasa.gov/education/primer, and then they've got the first, second, and third edition there. If you click on the third edition, it says right there, download a copy of the 2024 primer for free. It takes you to libertypub.com, and it's right here, and you can get individual chapters. You can download the whole thing for free if you want. It's fucking tight. And it is the most cited peer-reviewed journal dedicated to the understanding of life's origin, evolution, and distribution in the universe. And it tells you everything we know and how much we know of it. It's pretty fucking tight. I read the second edition in my undergrad, so I want to go back and reread the third edition now.
I'll talk to you later. Online, other stuff is being, kind of hidden behind a little veil now. So hopefully that stays.
Download it while you can. Download it while you can before Trump and Elon fucking delete it. See you later, Troy. All right, we got one call left, and I'm dropping them. Ooh. Now, we're going to take this last one. It's Kira, who is an agnostic who wants to know if atheists can believe in ghosts and the afterlife. Kira, you are on the line with Forrest and Darante. How are you doing today?
Interesting.
Hey, guys.
Hello.
Hello. How are you?
What's your pronouns?
Sorry?
What's your pronouns?
He, him.
Mine are also he, him.
Okay.
Hey,
Can
Kira,
believe in ghosts?
Hold on, just really quickly, can you do me a favor? I'm going to say now, and as soon as I say the word now, I want you to say just literally anything, okay? So here we go. 1, 2, 3, now.
No.
Okay, so there's a really long delay there, and it's coming real craggly, so it sounds an awful lot like you're using a voice changer. That sets off some alarm bells for me. I don't know why you would.
I am using a voice changer.
Okay, cool.
I am.
Okay, so, like, you need to fix it because it sucks. It's really scraggly. I don't care if you use one. If you're just not comfortable speaking in front of people, that's okay. But, like, it's real scratchy and awful.
This is the best way down, man.
Okay, well, then we will quickly answer you. Some atheists do, but if you're really skeptical, you wouldn't.
Yeah.
That's the long and short.
That's my answer.
Yep. Anyway, we appreciate you calling in. I can't take the scraggly robot voice, but I hope you have an awesome rest of your day. Thanks for waiting for so long. All right. And that was it. That's the last of the calls. I asked Arden to change my name to Darante's favorite dumbass down there at the bottom of the screen. I'm very happy that she was able to accommodate.
That is hilarious.
What a show. What a show. You know what's crazy? We thought that this was going to be a very short, very boring show with one theist caller and nothing else. It's 10:30 or 10:13. We've been going for a long time. This is great. And we had some great calls. We covered a lot of stuff.
Yes. Holy shit. I didn't expect that.
Yeah, no, it went very well. I got to say, I've had a fucking blast hosting with you, my guy. Like, this has been a lot of fun.
Man.
If you ever want to work together again, please let me know.
Oh, let's do it, man. Let's do it. This was incredible. I was tired when I got here because I've done 2 live shows already today. And so I was like, oh my goodness, I don't know how much I'm gonna be able to last tonight, but this was incredibly energizing.
It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun.
I've laughed
and
my
while
ass
we were
off
on
tonight.
while we were on the show, I got a phone call that my luggage has been delivered. So now I have luggage and I can go and take a fucking shower and wash off the airplane stink. You know what I mean? That sounds great.
Oh man,
this has been an amazing show. Thank you all for it's been a show. This will go down as one of the shows of all time for sure. Thank you so much to Arden for producing. You're freaking awesome. Thank you so much to Stephanie Helms for being our call screener tonight. Thank you so much to all of the mods in chat. Thank you so much to all of our chatters. Thank you so much to our Patreon supporters and our channel members. Thank you to Faya Halo for doing the timestamps as you always do. Thank you to Darante LaMar for being my amazing co-host today. And thank you for watching. Have an awesome rest of your day and never stop learning. Bye.